This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari, where I would have started with a beautiful view of the sunrise if we had one. But we don't, because every morning the clouds move in to ruin our plans. My name is Jamie, and this morning Craig is on camera with me. And we're coming to you live from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Because this is a live safari, first of all, we can't control the weather, which means no pretty sunrise this morning. But also it means that you can interact with us, and you can do so using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Alternatively, you can send us your questions in the comments section of the YouTube chat stream thing. You know what I mean. Now, it is a lovely morning. This is my absolute favorite time of year. I really, really love this time of year because it's hot during the day, and I like a hot day. And then it is cool enough that if you have your fan on to blast away the mosquitoes, you can actually cuddle up under your covers and feel really cozy, and it's just perfect. Hard to gauge exactly how many jackets you need in the morning, though. Of course, this being a live safari, it means we have to multitask in all sorts of ways. We have a director in our ear telling us all sorts of amazing things. This morning, that lovely director is Faith. And if you are Tristan, you will try and call the person who's starting the show at 3 seconds to go on the Game Drive radio. Now, give me one moment. Let me find out what Tristy wants. Go ahead, Tristan. Copy. Awesome. Thanks, Trist. Yeah, they haven't come up Philemon, so he must have crossed around Rebecca's side. Okay, copy. I'm sure that's him. Snazzy would love to see an owl. Now, I'll give you an update on what Tristan said in a second. Snazzy, I would love to see an owl too. I will make you a solemn promise that I will not drive past any owls this morning. In fact, I don't think I've ever driven past an owl without attempting to put it on camera. So I absolutely will show you an owl as and when the opportunity presents itself. I know Taylor yesterday on the Sunset Safari was chatting a little bit about owls. It's a weird word the more you say it. Now, what Tristan's telling me, because I'm heading in the direction of Treehouse Dam, is that he's got male leopard tracks walking up Zoe's and coming out all the way to the north of us, which tells us almost immediately that my plans for the morning are sorted. I was juggling between Hyena Den and Hukumuri, but the decision's been made. Aha! We're going to the Hyena Den. While we get there, I'll speed up a little bit. Off you pop across to Tristan so that he could tell you that entire story once again.
Indeed, we are looking at tracks, and I'm sure Jamie was telling you all about it. But there you can see on the left-hand side of the road is a whole bunch of little kitty footprints that are moving straight up via tele-access. And so I'm pretty sure these tracks are for Hukumuri. It's a male leopard that's been walking here, and so I'm pretty sure they are for him after he's finished his porcupine meal. Often this is a route that he'll take, and he'll go up sort of where tele-access and then cross out towards the west. But we'll follow them for a bit and just see. Maybe he's still lurking around. Maybe he's sitting somewhere on the road or doing something like that. As Jamie mentioned, my name is Tristan on camera. I've got a Senzo this morning, and it is wonderful to be with you on what can only be described as an interesting morning. It was clear and beautiful and stars, and now there's big sort of fluffy clouds starting to roll in, and it's getting a little bit cooler, which is going to be quite interesting. So we'll see how it goes. But the plan was not actually to follow Hukumuri's tracks at all. The plan was that we were going to go onto the northern boundary and try and see if we can catch up with Tingana and his shy suitor in the form of that skittish female from Buffelshoek, and see if they're still around and mating. That was going to be the plan, but, you know, those tracks change things, and given that we've got these tracks, we better rather follow these then kind of leave them here. But he just scent marked there and then kind of straight on. And there's lots of hyena tracks as well that seemingly are going up and down, and maybe they were following him during the course of the night. You'll often see that with leopard tracks on a road, is that there'll be hyena tracks either right on them or just to the side of them as they kind of move around following. Now, it's still quite dark, and so I am going to need a spotlight if I am to actually properly figure out what's going on. So Shelley, how do I know that these are Hukamuri's tracks? There's quite a simple reason. As a lot of the leopards out here will follow pretty specific routes when they walk around. They like to walk certain ways, and given the size of this track, it's bigger than most of the sort of male, or it's an adult male leopard that's walked here. And we know that Hukamuri, when he comes from the Treehouse Dam area, which is where he was with his porcupine, he comes generally over Rebecca's and up along the western side of Quarantine, and then either onto Zoe's Road, or he cuts through the block between Zoe's and the power lines, and then he pops over and then on to Vuyatela Access itself, where he'll then kind of move up, and then generally from here cuts onto the power lines road, from the power lines straight westwards towards Simambili Arathusa. Sometimes he sticks on this road a little bit longer and he'll go all the way up towards Gari Gate. But generally this is his pattern. I haven't seen Tingana walk this route in quite a long time, and this track is not quite as big as Tingana's. So that will give you kind of an idea as to why we summarize that it's Hukamuri. I could be wrong. It could be another male leopard that's out here. But just given where he was and his track record, so to speak, this is an area that he would like to move around. So it looks like he's cut off now, and I'm pretty sure he's gone towards the power line. So what we're going to do is we're going to just loop around, and we're going to go check the power line side itself and see if they pop out there. So, Child of the Universe, in terms of how much is Hukamuri's territory on Djuma, if we had to say percentage-wise, these days, I would say probably about 35% is what he's using, maybe even 30%. He used to do a lot more. He used to, as we know, go all the way towards Cheetah Cut Line when Tingana was not himself. And so his tracks are still going. They're back on the road, which is good. So he now probably, like I say, about 30%. He basically comes in from Shabamu, Treehouse Dam area, and then pretty much straight north line and then onto Vuyatela Access in that way. So it's this kind of little western fringe that he's on at the moment. He could potentially push further. Like I say, I haven't seen... just want to check here quickly. Interesting. He's gone up Aubrey's Road. All right, well, let's just follow them up and see. Or did he? No, he just came this way to Mark, and he's gone back onto Vuyatela Access. Yeah, back onto Vuyatela Access. So he's, you know, he could go further. We haven't seen Tingana moving around too much on this side, so I kind of suspect that he could have gone a little bit further, but, you know, for now, it smells like his poo there. That's not very pleasant. Not something you want to get a waft of first thing in the morning, is a nose full of dead porcupine. But anyway, there's lying on the road there as well. Okay, so we're going to try and concentrate. We're going to try and see if we can find this cat for all of you. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Jamie, see how she's doing on her search for the hyena den.
All right, so while Tristan sniffs out Hukamuri, we're nearly at the hyena den, which requires very little in the way of a sense of smell, and in fact, a lack of sense of smell is probably going to be preferable. The other day when I went to visit it for the first time since getting back from leave, I could not actually comprehend the full foulness of the stench that had accumulated at that den. Doesn't mean it's any less magical for it, it just adds to the full sensory experience and possibly strips the lining from your sinuses. Now let's go see who's home. I actually didn't see Hukamuri's tracks coming out of the area that he was in yesterday with his porcupine. As Tristan's discussed, we're pretty certain that those are his tracks, and I could have just missed them. It is dark. But we will just confirm once we've finished at the hyena den that he isn't just sitting there and it's in fact another male leopard. Pretty certain that it's not, though. All right, hyenas. Where are you? Watch. Wait for it. It'll be the first morning that I've been out on drive with all of you, and they won't be home. Just because that's how things go. It's how things work. They've probably got a massive kill somewhere off on another property that I can't follow them onto. Hello. No, that is not the case. Morning, June. Where are your bubbas? Ben wants to know if the Djuma hyena den population, or hyena clan, sorry, population is increasing. Well, yes, in the sense that there are, what's it, Ribbon's got 2, June's got 2, Pretty's got 2, and Plonk. So that's 7 new cubs that we know of, and possibly more than that, because I have a funny feeling that Hart is hiding somewhere with cubs as well. Don't have any real reason for the basis for that guess. It's just a guess because of the timing. So, yes, in the sense that there are plenty of them. However, what's interesting about the Djuma clan is that over the past 3 years that I've been spending time with them, nearly 4, can you believe it? Nearly 4 years that I've spent time with them, their population really hasn't increased very much at all. We've lost some truly key players, and in fact, I think the actual number of hyena clan members has gone down. I don't know if that was due to the death of their matriarch, Madam. Perhaps threw them into disarray. But none of the cubs that we've known, or we knew from, let's say, around that end of 2015 period, so November, December, D1, D2, Jan and Ari, we don't see them very often. In fact, some of them we don't see at all. We don't know where they've gone. I think it's just the Decembers that have been around. And I think, in fact, it's only the male December that's been around. December, of course, the December twins were very poorly named by myself as a way of referencing them without my thinking about the future. So I don't know. The Djuma clan is a remarkably small clan for the territory size that they seem to hold. I don't know if that means that at one point or another it was much larger than it is now. Not really sure exactly what went on. I'm just going to pop round the other side just to see if Ribbon's here, because she's been using the other entrance to the den, and she does, of course, have tiny little cubs. Now, David would like to know if I can describe the hyena den smell. Yes, I absolutely can. Oh, there's somebody else here. That was to be expected. If you combined rotten meat with a sort of, what would I say? If you described, hey my boy, if you described a cross between rotten meat and a musky smell, and then a sort of a wet dog smell, you'd get the combination of hyena den. I feel as though James would be far more eloquent in his description. You know who else is very good with smells is VM. VM has a way of describing exactly what it smells like. I have to say that today it doesn't smell too bad. So there we have the lady of the clan, Corky herself, the matriarch, and can you believe it? Look at Plonk. He's absolutely massive. This is the first time I've seen him properly since I got back from leave. There's a fly crawling very close to my microphone. It's very irritating. Sorry, if you hear funny sounds, it's me trying to swat it. I cannot believe that... No, sorry, it's crawling in my hair now. Hold on. There you go, it's gone. Now, I can't believe that this little thing was a tiny little speck of black not so long ago. The other cubs, of course, that have grown immensely are Pretties, and Michael wants to know when Pretty's cubs will get names. How frank might I be with this? I'm going to be very frank and hope that it's too early in the morning for me to get into trouble. The naming of Plonk caused something of a stir. Let's put it that way. It came as a surprise to most people, myself included. And while I have to say that the name Plonk has well and truly grown on me, I love it. I think it really works for him. And I'm one of those people who doesn't get too worked up about the names of animals. I don't think they care what they're called. As long as it works to get people attached to them and to love them, I'm happy with whatever approach comes forward. And actually, surprisingly, the simple names like Plonk and Waffles and Soup are names that stick in people's minds. And Corky, and strangely enough, June. They're all names that people remember. And not only remember, don't have trouble pronouncing. The issue, though, with naming Plonk was that, as I said, it caused some ripples far and wide, both in terms of disgruntled people in the sort of viewer sphere, as well as disgruntled people a little bit closer to home and more officially. And as a result, the answer to that is I have absolutely no idea. I'm truly terrified to start giving them a nickname. My temptation is always to just give a nickname and hope it catches on and then it solves our problem. But I don't know the answer to that. I'll tell you what, I'll get on it. I've actually been chatting to Nikki quite a bit about several different animals and how we should refer to them. The Nkuhumas, of course, being one. So can I get back to you on that? Because the answer is I don't know. And at this point, I like my head attached to my shoulders. And when we named the Birmingham boys all those months ago, we had a policy in the way in which we do things. And it unfortunately has become one of those policies that we seem to be sticking to. Okay, we're going to check out what our hyenas are up to. I'm not going anywhere while we do that. Tristan has to work a bit harder for his bread and butter this morning, and I think he's still tracking. What's up, guys?
Well, I'm glad that Jamie's got at least some activity at the den, and hopefully all the little ones will be out and there'll be much chaos at the den a little bit later. We're still kind of trying to figure out exactly where Hukumuri went. The last tracks we had were on Vuyatela Access, but quite far north, and then I lost them pretty close to one of the water points that are on here, one of the little natural forming mud wallows. So what I want to do is try and head back towards that area and maybe just check that mud wallow quickly in case he went for water and just lay down. That's my thought at this stage. I would imagine that that's maybe what he's done, because it doesn't look like he's crossed Triple M, which is good news in some respects. What he sometimes does do, though, is he sometimes turns and actually goes up towards Buffelshoek, and then he goes towards the boundary and he does a little incursion at Sydney's Dam area and kind of round, and then he comes back down almost sort of Aubrey's way, back onto Vuyatela Access and then out again. So we'll just have a little scratch around. We did go past some very relaxed looking impalas that were just kind of sleeping next to the road, so I don't think radar, difficult to say. I doubt it, though. And the reason why I say this is because Hukumuri wasn't being seen much on Juma when Hosana decided to leave us. He, at that stage, was mostly in the west where Shadulu's cubs were. We weren't seeing much of him at all. It's possible, though. You never know what happens in the deep of the night. Sometimes they bump into each other and we don't know. What I can say, though, is I'm pretty sure once Hosana got kind of moved off of Juma and he went in towards Arathusa and down towards EP, because that's the route he took, that's the pressure from Hukumuri then might have been enough to start pushing him further south into Londolozi. So I suppose there's a contributing factor, but I don't think he's the initial reason that Hosana started to move from this area. I have a funny feeling that it might be something to do with that skittish male more than it is with Hukumuri. It also could have been Tingana. You know, he's getting to that age now where he was starting to get big and bulky, and we know he was scent marking. But maybe that was just it. It was just Tingana had enough and said, that's you out of here. We don't know. Also, it just could be Hosana that he wants to go and explore. You know, he did the same thing last year at pretty much the same time of the year. So who knows? I mean, it might have just been that he wanted to go and see somewhere else, or there's a specific sort of thing about this time of the year that makes him want to go down towards that area to go and make use. Maybe it gets too dense here. I don't know why he does it, but And we don't know for sure if he was chased. There was no evidence of him being chased or hurt or anything like that. Carol, no, not really. I mean, no leopard likes to hang around a hyena den. It's causes a lot of issues for a leopard to be near a hyena den. They obviously get chased and all kinds of other things by hyenas. So no, it's not so much that. It's what happens is where that hyena den is at the moment. That hyena den is on a road called Shabamu, which has always been historically a leopard road. So Karula used to use it. Shadow all the time was on it when Karula passed away. Tingana often seen crossing in and out of there. Shongile, Hosana, pretty much all of them. It's a through route because it links to a big road on Little Gowrie, which takes them kind of into that area. And so it's always historically been a good road for leopard. Also with that little mud wallow there, it's a perfect little leopard drinking spot. And so you find a lot of the time the leopards move up and down there, and the hyena den is now right next to that road, and it means that the leopards are bumping into this den a lot more than they normally would because it's of the proximity to the road itself. So that's why you're seeing this kind of increase, if you want to call it, numbers in terms of how many times we're seeing a leopard close to the den. Right, this is roughly where I lost the track, so I'm going to just quickly do a little scratch around here. See, you can actually see them in the road in front of me. So I'm just going to have a little look. Sorry, I thought I heard a Franklin alarm calling. But I'm going to have a quick scratch here, see where these go. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you across to Steve Falconbridge so he can say hello to all of you from the bush.
A wonderful morning or evening, wherever it is in the world that you might be. My name is indeed Steve. I'm joined for the first time, I think, by Jean-Dre on foot. And obviously we've got Herbie, the formidable, out here giving us a hand. And well, you guessed it, today is Monday. We are going to be doing some medicinal plants. And I had some earlier. We're going to have to harvest some along the way, but we're going to be focusing on all the small things today. We're going to be doing some grasses, some plants, and we're going to focus very specifically on a medicinal plant that this time Jean-Dre is going to try. Excited? He's very excited. He's giving him one of these really big eyebrows. So what we're doing right now is Herbie's getting in touch with Tristan. We're going to head in that direction first. We've got a few hours to kill first and see if we can maybe give him a hand with the tracks of Hukumuri. He's okay on foot. I've had him a couple times, sort of from a distance. And I hear Tristan was answering that question about what's he doing hanging around the den site. And essentially, he's not necessarily hanging around the den site. He walked that way, found it the first time by complete accident. And as Tristan was talking about earlier, about how they like to follow certain paths, he just came back in on the same path. And well, the den site just happens to be there off to the right. Oh, Jean-Dre, you got a nice caterpillar over here. Paula, you say, wow, bushwalk. Yay, bushwalk. Well, we're excited as well, being out in the African wilderness with you. Please don't forget to send any questions and comments you might have through. Look at this guy. He looks quite nasty to the touch. A very hairy caterpillar. I must admit, I don't know my caterpillar species very well, but I'm sure someone out there might be able to tell. But we're going to take some screenshots, some pictures, and I think there needs to be a book on caterpillars of the world. What do they turn into? Because we got lots of books on butterflies and moths, but no one really knows where they come from. What does it look like? Maybe there is a book out there I don't know about. I haven't seen one yet. But very good. You can clearly see how it's been browsing on this acacia. And all those leaves are gone. There's probably more than one of them. I don't think it's just him that's been doing it. But lots of bird species will be coming around trying specifically to look for these caterpillars for food. Jenny, I've got the same feeling. Itchy, 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 itchy. Send through your questions and comments and let us know if there's anything specific you'd like to talk about this morning. We're going to be looking at the little things, and as I said, we're going to help Tristan try and track the Hulk. Indeed, it is him. And as Tristan was saying, it is exactly the route he likes to travel. It's just by nature. When I started working here, you'd ask Herbie or Rexon when we're following or trying to find Tingana or Hosana, and they'll say, oh, let's go check this area. And it's exactly that. These animals have a sort of pattern. They have a way of moving. Just like you do if you go to the shops or you go to work, you have a direction or a route that you choose. Am I wrong? We do. We have that, and leopards are a force of nature. They behave. So quite easy to follow them So that's kind of where we get our assumptions. But with Tristan, he can look at a track and he can almost tell you which leopard it is. I'll say it's a male or it's a female. Sometimes I can be quite specific, but I'll always have a little bit of a thought and a bit of a guess. Okay, well, while I try and navigate through the thickets here to try and find the tracks that Tristan is on, let's go back down that way to the hyena den with Jamie and some cuteness.
All right, well, it sounds like there's lots planned for you this morning. And the hyenas, of course, are delivering in their own way as well. Corky's got up and left. I don't know where she went, but she took Plonk with her. But fortunately for us, June decided to stay behind. And look, one of her little ones has popped its head out and is now enjoying a little chin scratch on Mom's back. The perfect spot. I'm sure they must get terribly itchy down there in the den where all sorts of parasites have free reign. So it's nice to come out and have an early morning scratch using Mom's spine as a useful scratching post. Oh, there you go. Right under the chin. It's interesting, I've noticed that June has got very prominent pelvic bones, hip bones. I don't know why that is, because she's had a full belly every single time I've seen her. I don't know, she just went through a patch of hardship where she lost a little bit of condition, just perhaps also lactating. Her cubs, she's providing a massive amount of nutrients for the little ones, especially at this early stage. So it might just be that they've literally sucked the life out of her over the course of the last 3 months. Where's your sibling? Bring them out. Come on, it's morning time. It's time to play before bedtime. Dan would like to know how I know that this is June. It's a combination of different factors. Once you really spend time staring at hyenas, you start to get to know them individually. But what's really nice about this particular moment is that when her cub decides what it's going to do, if it would just move itself away from her right side, I could show you June actually has the word juice written in her spots. And if you can see it, then you can't unsee it. As soon as it's like one of those optical illusion things where once your brain wraps its mind around it, you actually can't unsee it. But right now the cub is blocking it completely because it wants to chew on the chloris grass as it leans over her back. Oh, please get up now, June. Yeah. Amazing. Wouldn't it be funny if the cub stayed on? The other thing that she has is a little nick out of the top of her right ear and a little nick out of the top of her left ear. I don't want to draw too much attention to them now, though, because the cub's just being so entertaining. Bye. Here we go. Right, so there we go. You see how the top there is just a little bit frayed around right at the sort of tip of the right ear. And then the left ear's got a little bit of a nick just down along the outer edge at the top. Well, that's one way that we know that it's June. There's another way which is really simple, and that is that June, out of all of the mothers at the den at the moment, has the least prominent spots. So she's actually quite not pale, because she's a reddish color, but her spots are actually very faded and not very clear at all. And I'm trying to remember if Scarback was like that, her mom, and I'm pretty certain that she wasn't, actually. Although Scarback was quite old, so of course the hyenas do start to get a bit faded the older they get. In June's case, though, that's just how she is, because she's a young hyena. She was a tiny baby when I started working here in 2015, so she's still quite young. This is probably her first successful litter of cubs. Not necessarily her first litter, but her first successful one. That nice grass there, all that chewing to do. Rian Diapple says that June has a beautiful face and that she almost looks like a teddy bear. I often notice that with hyenas. There's definitely an almost bear-like feel to their facial structures. And I remember actually having a guest once that when we saw a brown hyena on drive went, "It's a bear, it's a bear." It was not, of course, a bear. It was a brown hyena, but the people often, especially when they're familiar with bears, often see that resemblance. She certainly has wonderful cheekbones, darling. Yes, you do. You are pretty. You're not as pretty facially, Pretty's got a bit scarred over the years, as is inevitable with hyenas, but to me, Pretty's got the prettiest face. But she's still gorgeous in her own way. Aren't you, June? Oh, and sleepy too. Don't blame you. She's been out all night. I can tell by the bulging belly she's sporting. Rob, no, the adults don't sleep in the den. It is just the cubs. But often you'll see the adults at the sort of the entrance to the den, which is large enough for them to curl up in. And sometimes they even block the den up completely and the cubs can't get out of that particular entrance. Don't chew on your mom's ear. That's not very nice. No. No. Or, mind you, you're going to make it easier for other people to identify her, so chew away. Hyenas are so tough, June probably won't even notice. So what happens with the entrance to the den is essentially it's a safe place for cubs, which by extension means that the tunnels within it have to be too small for something like a lion or a leopard to get in there and cause them harm when the adult hyenas are away. So the cubs are actually capable of excavating themselves, and the tunnels within the den get smaller and smaller, and they also have little shelves that they build for themselves, so they don't have to sleep if it's rained a bit. They don't have to sleep on wet ground or anything like that. Your mother is not a jungle gym. No. Is it breakfast time, or have you already had breakfast? I think you've already had breakfast. And possibly second breakfast as well. All right, while we wait patiently for our hyenas to wake up a little bit, let's go across to the leopard whisperer himself, who has once again pulled the cat out of the hat.
Indeed, we have. So our hunch paid off. Where we thought he was going to be at the water point is exactly where he is right now. So when you last saw me, I was about to get off the car to go and see where the tracks went, and we took a not even 5-minute walk along the game path to these mud wallows, and he was lying right next to the mud wallows and is having a very big nap at this stage. So he's got this kind of full tummy, obviously, a tummy full of porcupine. And so his kind of movement would have been one of scent marking a little bit. And then he was bound to end up at water at some point. And because when we followed the tracks all the way, we know that he hadn't stopped at any water point prior to here, it was a good bet that he was going to be lying in this particular area. Now, I'm quite glad that he hasn't crossed over, because we're probably only about 50 meters from the boundary, not too far at all. And I don't think he's going to be moving too much in the course of this morning. There is a bit of cloud cover, so he's not going to have to worry about the sun blazing down on him just yet. And so he can lie pretty much where he is and have a really good cat nap and digest that meal that he managed to get yesterday. But you can see how tricky it is at the moment to find these cats. You know, luckily for us, little knob-billed duck. There was a knob-billed duck that wanted to come landing here and saw that there was a leopard and quickly made a hasty retreat and turned away. But, you can see how tricky it can be to find these leopards. The way that he's lying in the grass like this is very, very hard to actually see him from a distance when we're very close to where he is right now, and so we can get his spots quite easily. But from the sort of backside, there's a bit of a mound and some long grass. You can see there's a patch of green long grass there, and so if you're on the other side of that, you would never know that there is a leopard here. You would in fact probably be hard pressed to actually spot or find him. But there's the water that I was talking about. This is a little trap for a lot of the cats. They often come and drink here. In the years I've seen Mvula come here, Karula, Shadow, Hukumuri, Shadilu, lions quite regularly. Dogs come here, so this is always a good place to check. If you've got tracks in the area, it's always good just to come and have a little look at these wallows. And Hukumuri particularly seems to like this swallow. I've tracked him here a few times. So, Bobby, when you're talking about kind of porcupine quills and those kind of things getting stuck in a leopard, do they cause an infection like they can in a dog? So yes, they can. Infection can happen on lion, leopard, and the various other predators when they go after porcupines. But it's normally a kind of secondary infection. It's obviously the quills can sometimes be dirty, and they get stuck in it, and especially if it's in a place where it's very difficult for the cat to get rid of them. So if it gets into, let's say somewhere like on the shoulder where they can't kind of get to it, then they can get infections from that. But generally, cats are pretty good at getting quills out of them, particularly if they're healthy cats. A lot of the times you see big infections and cats really struggling with quills when they're in bad condition. So when they're old or they're injured and they've managed to kind of somehow get a porcupine, then they often get them stuck all over the place, and they don't groom them out properly, and then that causes the infection. But I mean, he was sitting up when we first got here, obviously, because we walked. I walked. He kind of popped his head up, and I didn't see when we drove in, and his head was still up. I didn't see any signs of any quills on him. So whatever was on him, I think he's been able to remove them during the course of the evening. And they'll use their mouth, they'll use their paws, they'll pretty much use anything to try get rid of it. And a lot of the time, the quills that they do get in them are just kind of superficial. They kind of get into the skin a little bit, but they don't actually anchor in there. And so just a little tug or a little flick with the paw, and that's often enough to actually knock them out, and they then kind of heal from that. So, they're resilient creatures. Leopard or any of the wild animals out here, they often can sustain wounds and have, projectiles in them and all kinds of other things, and still be just fine in comparison to humans. If we had a lot of those issues, or a lot of those kind of injuries, and you take the Nkahuma female as a prime example of this, if you had an injury like that as humans, we'd probably be dead with infections and all kinds of other things. But they're very resilient and good at keeping wounds clean, particularly the cats and leopards as well. They'll really kind of clean things out, even more so than lions. Lauren, how do they kill a porcupine? Given how kind of prickly it is and how sort of defensive porcupines can be. Well, there's a lot of leopards that have perfected the art, but generally what they try and do is they try kind of obviously corner the porcupine, which is not too difficult because they're not as fast moving as a leopard is. And then what they try and do is the porcupine will kind of rotate around and try and kind of keep its back towards the leopard. And so what the leopards will try and do is they try and actually slide their paw underneath the porcupine and then flick it, basically, and try and get it to get onto its side or onto its back, and then they can run in and grab it by the soft underbelly and the throat area and kill it like that. So that's how they generally try to do it. They won't jump on a porcupine because that's obviously going to lead to a lot of issues, but if they can turn it over, then they'll go for the throat and try and then kill it that way. And a porcupine essentially is, even though it's got so many quills, it's still a large animal and a good meal for a leopard, and it's why it's worth the risk of going after them. And there's a few leopards actually out here that have kind of perfected the art. There's a leopard that hangs around between Skukuza and Lower Sabi, and it will constantly walk along the road, and there's lots and lots of stormwater pipes that go under the road in Kruger. So it's obviously a tar road, and they're trying to kind of keep water off the road and make the road last longer, essentially. And the porcupines love living inside there. And this leopard literally just weaves along and goes to every little stormwater pipe and goes in and checks and tries to flush porcupines out. And as they come out, he'll then try and tangle with them. And the technique normally is to try and get a paw underneath and flick it, and then try and grab it from there once the softer underbelly is exposed. It's funny enough, a way that the Bushmen used to hunt porcupines as well is that they used to use a watermelon. And what they would do, or bitter melon, is probably better to say, but in more modern times, a watermelon does work as well. And they take it, and as the porcupine gets kind of scared, it lifts all its quills, and then they just throw it onto the porcupine, and the weight of that melon goes onto the spines, and then it topples the porcupine and exposes that underside, and then they can kill it like that, which is pretty ingenious. Anyway, we're going to carry on with Hokomori. I'm pretty sure he will wake up at some point. It's a good area for a lot of passing traffic. You never know what else we're going to find coming through here. There's lots of tracks for Ellies and various other things, and so hopefully something will come and pique his interest. In the meantime, though, back to Steve and his bushwalk.
Objective 1 for the morning completed. We were on our way to come and give you a hand. When Herbie found those tracks, he said, these are fresh. This animal is still on the property. So we were cutting through to see if we could maybe cut them off, but it seems like the leopard whisperer himself has been successful once again. So now we can slow right down. But what our plan is, and Herbie says, if Hukumuri's on the property like this and he's been here for a couple of days, there's a very good chance Shadulu might have popped in on the western side. So we're going to keep going down here towards Impala Plains Road and all the way around onto the west and see if maybe her and her little cubs have come in. Would you like that? Yes. But along the way, of course, we can do all these beautiful little things. Jean-No is framing up a wonderful little grass here, which he tells me is not that great at the moment because of the light. Well, I suppose that's always for the cam ops. It's all about light. For us, well, we see the light, but we don't think like that, do we? I don't really. Beautiful bottle brush. Beautiful. Also known as cat's tail by some people. Lovely little bit of dew caught on there this morning. It's regarded as a sort of subclimax grass, not very high in sort of nutrients or in forage. It's got some nutrients, but it's really nothing to say too much about. And when you look down at the bottom of it, that's how you basically go about looking at these grasses. You've got to go all the way to the bottom, and you'll see that this is the leaf material. There's almost nothing there. So when it comes to being fed upon by animals, there's plenty of it around here. Plenty of it around. So there is the grass in its entirety. So not an enormous amount of food available there, and more just pretty. So wonderful ornament for the house, for the table, for the dinner table, for the dressing room. Mia, you want to know how we see these little things on bushwalk? Well, we just look. There's so many little things. I mean, Herbie sometimes spots them, but there's so many little things at the moment. It's actually unbelievable. There's so many flowers, so many little insects. So that'll be our plan for the morning. When we find something awesome and special, we'll definitely stop and find a few, but our objective is to go around, see if we can get any tracks of Shadulu coming in. We do have quite some time until I lay out my medicinal plans for you. But until then, we're just going to keep walking along. Oh, go. Here's a nice insect, Andre. Net-winged insect, I believe. Net-winged bug. There he is, just on the end of the stalk. Very orange sort of colour with the black on the wings there. I don't really know too much about them, apart from recently identifying them as an insect. They're quite common around here. Especially this time of year, insects are abounding. So I couldn't tell you if it's a herbivore or an omnivore or predator. They do sometimes fly into my face, which is rather annoying. So we were talking about that last grass before, the bottle brush, which is what I'm also standing around here. And just to give you a comparison, when you see, you can actually see my leg between it, can't you? So this would be very low on the forage score. Now, if I compare it to the buffalo grass or the Panica maximum, which Andre's kind of got in front of him there, have a look at this grass now. Now, this is the same thing. This is the same. Look at all of that there. Now, how can you compare that with the last one? That's why this one has got a forage score of 10 out of 10. From a nutrient point of view, it's enormously valuable, very, very nutrient rich, but the forage score is about the amount of food that it provides. And if you compare that with this little guy over here, it's really no comparison, is it? So when you look at this guy, you've probably got a forage score of about 2. Look at him. You can see my hand quite clearly through it, whereas the Panica maximum, I could stand behind it and you can't even see my legs. That's a very good idea of how this grass is important. And, well, they grow in very dense stands. They're all around here, and they're very, very important. Bobby, you want to know what elephants eat that make the dung medicinal? Well, this time of year, elephants are feeding almost primarily on grass. So elephants are pulling these things up. They're actually eating these juicy bits right here, which are quite tasty, in fact. Lots of juice, lots and lots of juice. But grasses, for the most part, don't provide too much in the way of medicinal value. There are a couple things, but it's basically just fiber and cellulose that comes out. But if I find an old bit of dung, like this one on the floor, this one is not from grass. This one has got sticks from trees, bark. See, that says bark there. So it's in the winter months when the elephants are starting to get a little bit poor condition, sort of flu ailments and all sorts of teething issues start coming up. That's when elephants start feeding on trees and on bark and on roots. And inside the bark and the roots is generally where we find huge amounts of our medicinal properties. Obviously, fruits are very, very sort of nutrient rich and lots of vitamins, but not necessarily too many of the medicinal values we're looking for. Whenever I do a medicinal plant, when it comes to trees, we're mainly looking at the bark and the roots. Every now and again the leaves have some quality, but these plants are savanna plants, and they absorb their nutrients into the bark and into the roots as a sort of defense mechanism against fire. So they take it down in, and the elephants are able to push those trees over, accessing the roots, accessing the bark, to get them all the nutrients that they need. But animals that get the nutrients they need from their food, their meat, and from bones, Jamie is with the hyena den.
All right, so we had all the interaction a moment ago, and the cubs right next to the vehicle, but I moved slightly in the wrong way, and they've all retreated at high speed back to the entrance to the den. I had Pretty's little boy come right up to say hello to my foot, disconcertingly close. In fact, I think I might still, let me show you. Disconcertingly close to my foot. Look there. I wasn't watching properly. Naughty things. Yes, you naughty. Oh, this is absolutely magic. Don't worry, everyone. It's something that they grow out of completely. So we don't see June doing that. We don't see Corky doing that. It's not behavior that carries over. You know what's interesting is, and bravo, by the way, I tip my hat off to those of you who've been watching so closely. It is wonderful to get the sexes of Pretty's two cubs. It is also slightly preferable, slightly enjoyable to not be proven right exactly, but certainly have a theory of mine confirmed that the smaller cub is actually a female. Snazzy? No. Hyenas do not give their cubs piggyback rides. The cubs are not really built for gripping or staying on in terms of their design. They are really ground-based creatures. They can't even really jump all that high. You've seen hyenas cubs trying to jump over their mothers. The way that they're structured, the way that their back slopes, they're not actually built to be, or to have more than 2 feet off the ground at any one point in time. Now, what was I going to tell you? Oh, really interesting psychology going on here. Really, really interesting. It's something I touched upon, and it only just occurred to me the other evening when we were at the den and we saw June disciplining Ribbon. Ntima just came in and said hello to June. June was lying down, so it was hard to gauge her behavior exactly towards Ntima. But June's cubs were being submissive to Ntima. Yet, Ntima's mother, Ribbon, is submissive to June. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I think it's a really important lesson for us in terms of the way that these hyenas learn and interact with each other. So a cub typically inherits its mother's status. This we know. But it is a psychological thing, meaning that if hyenas adopt a cub, which is rare, but it does happen, what that means is that the adoptive cub will inherit the status of the adopted mother, not of the biological mother. So there's not much in the way of a biological mechanism going into the dominance of cubs. It is purely psychological. They are taught from a young age which hyenas they must submit to and which ones they're dominant to. Now, I think that in Ntima's formative months, I think that she got ideas above her station, so to speak, because there was a stage going through the footage while I was in the Mara that Ribbon was really dominant. And Gwen, of course, as a low-ranking individual, was also really dominant. We don't know exactly what happened. There was some sort of internal shift of power. But as a result, Ribbon moved quite far up the hierarchy. And I think that Ntima learned that. She learned that lesson. And now it's entrenched within her psyche, and although ribbon's been put back down in her place, it's just interesting that Intima seems to have retained a little bit of the dominance that she learned from Mom at her formative months. Isn't that weird? Isn't that really fascinating? Look, it remains to be seen if she'll keep that, or if by watching Ribbon's behavior around, for example, June, she perhaps learns. But having watched that footage again from the other night where we were sitting here, it was really, really interesting to see that she seemed to join in with June in terms of disciplining Ribbon, her own mother. That is why I love hyenas, because there is a complexity there that is simply unmatched in almost any other social animal except perhaps baboons. Now, Juliana, wonderful question, because it flows so beautifully into what we were just saying. Juliana wants to know how long the cubs will remain with their mothers. The answer to that is that they're actually dependent upon their mums for almost 2 years, between 1.5 years to 2 years. It does depend upon the rank of the mother, but essentially, hyenas invest an immense amount in their little ones. So the hyenas don't develop their bone-crushing jaw strength until around about 2 years old. That means they need a very extended period of care. Well, the same, of course, goes for lions and leopards. They also care for their young for about 2 years before they're really, truly able to look after themselves. Bit less for leopards. And as you know, young lions are not very good at hunting at all in the beginning. But hyenas actually lactate for really extended periods. If they're a high-ranking individual, often up to 2 years, you can see a really massive hyena cub still suckling. That is totally different to, say, around about 6 months or so that lion cubs or leopard cubs are given to sort of move their diet towards a purely meat-based diet. Isn't that cool? So it's part of the reason, or part of the explanation, the big mother theory, why hyenas are structured in the way that they are and why the females have such high levels of androgen in their systems. It means that they can be big and compete for food, and that they are therefore able to lactate for a long period of time. The negative effect of that is that their birthing process is incredibly tricky and very difficult. Jeanette wants to know how hyenas climb in terms of status. Do they fight? And the answer to that is yes, they do. Now, as far as I'm aware, I certainly don't understand the mechanism behind it, but if something clicks in a hyena's mind, usually with a friend or two, a low-ranked friend or two, and something happens and they just get into this hyped-up state of aggression, and they start attacking the higher-ranked individuals. It is rare. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's less rare than we think. I just don't know. But it's something that happens, and something clicks in their minds, and they either split, which does happen in large clans, or even in small clans where there's limited resources, or they conduct a coup, and they move up in rank. From there, of course, they've then got to sort out their own hierarchy, especially if it's being conducted as part of a team. They then need to sort out their own hierarchy from there and figure out who's actually the most dominant of them. I confess, I don't fully understand what exactly causes it or how it comes about. I suspect when there's a natural death of a matriarch, that really provides a useful inroad for that sort of thing, because all of a sudden there's no authority figure. This place was brimming with hyenas 2 minutes ago. Not that I'm sad to see Pretty's cubs come out. Yes, you're gorgeous. Now, at around about 7 months old, this is when hyena cubs do start taking extended absence periods from the den. They go on field trips. Sometimes their mothers even take them to kills at this age. But what you'll find is that usually the low-ranked hyena cubs will leave the den a little bit earlier than their high-ranked clan cousins, because mom can't bring food back for them. Okay, while our hyena cubs have a little snooze and we wait to see what they get up to, off you pop across to Hukumuri, who I imagine is doing much the same.
Well, seems to be a theme for the morning is snoozing, because as you can see, not much has taken place with Hukumuri. He has rolled over and was lying on his other side for a little bit. But other than that, he seems to be very, very happy with catching a nap here. And you can see there's his back feet that are looking all crossed over and comfy. He's certainly got a full tummy, so he must have eaten all of that porcupine in one night. It's just quite crazy because it's a big meal. And I've seen many other leopards feed on a porcupine, over the night and still be there the next morning. And I expected him to still be somewhere close, but he's quite far from where that porcupine was killed. He was close to sort of Treehouse Dam, which is more towards our southwestern boundary, and we're right up on the northwestern boundary now, not very far from Gowrie Gate, actually. And so he's walked quite a long way during the course of the night, and I suppose after the meal was finished, no point in sticking around, or maybe he dropped it and hyenas got the rest of it, and then he decided to move off. But he certainly is a happy, full cat and content cat, and it's in a way, as much as seeing Hukumuri on Djuma, it kind of holds mixed feelings, I think, for many people. Obviously his presence here is always going to be, or was always going to be, a threat to whether or not Hosana would stick around. But the thing about him is that he's new blood, and coming into this area means that Shadulu is going to feel a lot more confident to move around within this sort of western sector. And with Tingana not really using this at the moment, it's actually quite nice to have a relaxed male and a relaxed female that has cubs, potentially kind of moving and utilizing this western sector a lot more than what was maybe the case about sort of 2-3 months ago, where we weren't seeing much of Hukumuri or Shadulu at all. But now it seems as though both of them are starting to kind of push back a little bit into this western sector. And in an ideal world, it would be quite nice if they kind of controlled the western sector. Hosana came back and kind of slotted in the center, and Tingana towards the sort of eastern side of Djuma. But in all likelihood, that's not going to happen. In all likelihood, we're going to see Tingana kind of staying to the northeast and Hukumuri to this kind of southwestern or western sector. But it does mean that we get more chance to see Shadulu and the cubs, which is very, very cool. So, Rob, the thing is with leopards is that they will expand territory. Obviously, they take as much territory as they can get, given the density around them. Sometimes you'll find a situation where they end up taking a little bit too much, and they just don't actively patrol it enough because they'll start mating with a female. She'll have cubs, and you get into that situation where she's kind of, where he's kind of overstretched, if you want to call it that, and then little bits of their territory get carved away by younger males. And so Anderson is a pretty good example of that. Is he had a massive territory that stretched from the kind of Sand River into Ottawa, Marthley, Elephant Plains, Arethusa Private, Simambili, Arethusa. It was just this huge area given the density, and now he's kind of moving more down south. Then you had the opportunity for Hukumuri to kind of come in and carve out a piece of that territory kind of between Tingana and Anderson. So while they do kind of grow them here, because the density is so high, it often means when it gets too big, then they lose little bits to other males. And it's a constant evolving, shifting process. I mean, in my time here, I've done various maps on kind of territories, and if you take the original map and you compare it to what we're probably at right now, it's a very different set of territories, and the way that things have ebbed and flowed has changed quite a bit. Females typically don't change too much. Their territory will generally be the same sort of size and will have a pretty defined boundary, unless of course there's really something that changes that, like another female pushes them. But generally the females are pretty sort of static in their territory for their life, whereas the males is quite fluid. And if you take, Tingana is a prime example. His territory when he first arrived here was all the way on Elephant Plains, right up against the western boundary with Ottawa, and now he doesn't ever venture anywhere near there. His territory has shifted all the way, and it's just going east and east and east and north all the time. So they do change, and they kind of move around quite a bit. Good. We're going to keep staying with Thukumuri. I know he's sleepy and kind of flat for now, but things can change quite quickly, and I'm hoping that we can at least get one view of his face before we leave him. In the meantime, though, back to Steve, who I'm sure is enjoying a very cool morning out on walk.
Well, thanks, Tristan. Seeing as you found the leopard and Jamie's got the hyenas, we thought we might just hang out a little bit and do a little bit of chill time ourselves. The main reason why I'm lying down here on the couch, as you were, is that the grass that I am completely ensconced by, that is Jamie Patterson's favourite word, is known as couch grass. And this grass over here, very, very interesting grass in the fact that it has got a couple important functions in the environment. Now, if Chandra comes a bit closer, we'll be able to show you how it's growing. But essentially, it is regarded as a pioneer as well as a climax grass. Now, you might be confused. What is a pioneer? What is a climax? A pioneer grass is a grass that colonizes an area, moves in to an area that's disturbed, an area that's devoid of vegetation, and it kind of starts to take over. Pioneer grasses usually get replaced by subclimax grasses and then climax grasses, but this grass itself actually has the potential to grow vegetatively along the ground. Can you see all these long stolons? Now, they are above ground stems that grow along the ground, and then every now and again this piece here will anchor itself in the ground and then continue growing. So these actually make very nice lawns, and in areas of high hippo density, the hippos will just mow this down. Beautiful, beautiful lawn, and very, very nutrient rich, and also produces lots and lots of foliage as well. So quite high on sort of the forage score degree. Paula, these grasses, the couch grasses actually quite often are normally green for a long time, because where they grow is normally quite close to rivers. One of the ecological roles that they form is that they actually stabilize banks, they stabilize river beds, they stabilize stream beds, areas where you get lots of animal movement. And because buffalo, elephant, lots of grazers, including hippo, will mow this down very, very nicely, it actually stabilizes the soil, and because of where it often grows, it can stay green. But you can already see that a lot of it's starting to go a bit orange or a little bit brown. Here is the actual stolon root attachment over there. I didn't break this one up, but elephants will feed on these, will actually physically grab like this and pull it up and feed on it. You can see how that's attached over there. So it's a very, very important grass from an ecological point of view. Provides grazing, stabilizes soil, and eliminates soil erosion. So a very, very cool grass in retrospect. And well, it's also quite comfortable to lie on. You know, in many lodges and reserves around South Africa where they want lawn and they want grass, this is something that can be maintained across the whole lodge environment quite easily. It responds very well to being grazed. It doesn't do very well being pulled up like this, but grazing it right now or mowing it right now works very, very well. Works very, very well for that. Okay, well, I'm going to climb up off of my wet couch and elephant poo. I don't mind rolling it at all. It's all. Do you remember Hukumuri yesterday was rolling in his buffalo dung? That was marvelous. Hello, Angela. You want to know about animal scent marking and does it potentially destroy vegetation? I've got something just over here that I can show you. One thing that does happen, here we go. There's one right over here. Let's have a look, see if this is what we're talking about. Yeah, this is exactly. So one of the scent marking strategies of a wildebeest, blue wildebeest, and you always find them in these open areas like this, is that you want to know about, do they destroy vegetation? And have a look at this patch over here of sediment or of soil that's been exposed, and you can actually see the tracks over here of the wildebeest been scratching with his toes or his hooves, and the wildebeest will defecate on a pile like this and will roll it and scratch and roll and scratch and roll. It's all part and parcel of the disturbance factor that you want to find in the savanna biome. It's all part and parcel of that. But the problem is too many of these lead to degradation of the vegetation. Wildebeest, by their nature, are supposed to be migratory. Unfortunately, we put up a western boundary, and now wildebeest are what we call sedentary. They stay here. So these sort of dominant things will definitely lead to degradation of the vegetation. But in essence, it is part of parcel what's supposed to happen out here. The savanna is a disturbance non-stable state. It's constantly in flux, constantly moving. And so a dung pile over here, scratch there, tree pushed over here, an animal. Oh, I've still got my flower, Jean-Andre, thank you. An animal scratching a tree. Wildebeest also scratch trees in form of sort of scent marking. Porcupines will feed on the bark at the base of a tree. I'm talking about porcupine because that's Hukumuri's belly there. And that can actually lead to fire, eventually killing the tree. So Hukumuri did a good thing. He killed the porcupine. He's saving the forest.
Well, Hukumuri is not doing much of anything right now, though. As much as he's done lots of other things, he's not doing very much in the form of movement. Although he popped his head up briefly just now. There was a few birds that were complaining. He kind of glanced over at them for all of 3 or 4 seconds and then proceeded to flop down. But he has been rolling around quite a bit. There's been a few yawns. So it almost seems like he's starting to kind of stir a little bit, but there's just no sun to really kind of drive him to do anything right now. You know, normally at this time of the day, it's starting to heat up, and so shade becomes the next thing that they need to look for. But today it's this beautiful kind of cloud cover, which is making the temperature absolutely wonderful, I would imagine, for a full kitty like this. Means he can just have a good nap right out in the open and actually is not being forced to move anywhere. Plus, it's going to be a lot cooler with this cloud cover than if it was bright sunshine. And if it was bright sunshine, I think he would be in an unhappy state and lots of panting. You can see he's breathing quite quickly anyway and quite rhythmically, and that's all just because of its kind of fullness within the tummy. Samad, how old is Hukumuri? We don't have an exact age. It's always quite tricky. I mean, there are photos of him, and we kind of guess ages. I think the first photo was 2011, if I'm not mistaken, of him. And he wasn't a cub at that point. So, you know, he must be around, I would say, you know, we say 7 or 8, somewhere there, maybe more. Could be around kind of his age. I mean, it's tricky. It's always difficult unless you see one as a cub. I know the guys have done a lot of work, like Michael Fleetwood and James Richard. You guys have searched through countless photos looking for him, and you found all kinds of ones from down in that Crockbridge area. But I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2011 was the first photo of them. I must go back and double check. It's been a while since I've actually looked at those photos. And I don't think anyone as yet has found pictures of him as a little cub, which is pretty par for the course, given where he was born. Very seldom in the Kruger National Park are leopard cubs seen at young ages. So, you know, that's sort of 3-month, 4-month, 5-month old, when they're still kind of quite reliant on den sites and those things. You don't really see too many of those in Kruger. Every now and then people get lucky and they will, but it's not hugely not like here where den sites will be found and then they will be monitored and kind of we can off-road and get to den sites. A lot of the time leopards will try and use den sites in certain ways and particularly in thick dense areas, which means it's not conducive to areas where you can't off-road because you're not going to really see them too often. And in fact, actually, you should all tune in this afternoon for our Safari Lives episode, because we're going to discuss leopard dens on Safari Lives today, and cubs and all those kind of things. So we'll go quite in depth into all of that this afternoon. But yeah, essentially, I mean, he's in his prime at the moment. To answer your question about his age, he's going to be in the best shape that he can possibly be in right now. So, Sylvia, you know, when leopard territories are formed, it's always one of those situations. I mean, you can never say how large they're going to be because it's very dependent on a number of different things. So it's dependent on the environment that they're in. Is there a lot of food? Is there a lot of water? Is there a lot of potential mating rights and den sites? And that will always determine, you know, a size of a territory. Also, density of other leopards. That determines territory size massively. So if we take here in the Sabi Sands, where it's one of the highest densities of leopard in the world, And the average size territory here for a male is about 5,000 hectares, which is 10,000 acres, roughly. And a female, she's using about 3.5 to 4,000, but 3.5 more so than anything else. So if you take those sizes and then you compare it to the leopards of the Kalahari system, so the desert areas, those leopards there, some of them have got territories that are 120,000 acres. So, it's almost 12 times bigger because the density there is so much less, the availability of water is so much less, and prey density is so much less than what you're seeing here. And that means that the territory sizes will shift. Do they share territories? So there's often a overlap in the territory structure. What you will have is that you will have males that will constantly be vying for territory, for the prime spots, and females that will come into estrus will dictate that the males will move a little bit more. And so there is often an overlap, but it's very seldom do those males move around in the same area, because obviously the risk is, if they do, is that they're going to come to blows. A male leopard is going to fight with another male leopard for his territory. It might not be physical all the time, but he's definitely not going to be impressed when an intruder male is around. So they don't really overlap as males. Females, yes, that can happen. If you look at the likes of Tundi and Shadow, at one point I remember we had a sighting with Tundi on a kill at Treehouse Dam, and she was sitting on the kill behind the dam wall, and Shadow went to the dam as well, and they kind of didn't even know each other was there. But so there is a slight overlap in the female territories, typically because the mother, when she gives birth to cubs and has female cubs, there's often a little section of her territory that's kind of gleaned out. And so, litter like Shadow and Tundi, they've kind of taken the two territories to the south of Mom, basically, and so there's a slight overlap that's taken place there. But again, the females are quite sort of territorial. They're not going to really want other females around, and so they kind of try and keep each other at bay, but it's a constant sort of liquid flowing movement within the territories, and so sometimes some females will grow slightly and then they'll lose, and then it just kind of shifts and moves. And it's interesting to watch how, when the drought came along, territories for leopards changed slightly, because they were so dependent on water that they weren't ranging as far as they sometimes would. So I was watching when because I was in Simamili at that time, and so Salahesh and Tiani and Anderson became a lot more predictable in where they were going to be, and they would hang around in certain points all the time because there was availability of water, which meant there was availability of food, and therefore much better places for them to be. So the territories almost shrunk slightly because there was no point in patrolling and getting way away from water. Obviously, luckily here in the Sabi Sands there is a lot of water, but it made life a lot easier. And if you even take, let's say, in winter of last year with Hosana, he pretty much lived around the two waterholes that were Gallagher and Vuyatelapan. So he bounced between those two. Remember, there was no water at Buffelshoek, no water at Treehouse, no water at Twin Dams, no water at Chelapan, and all of these little mud wallows like the one where Hukumari is sleeping were not around. And so for him, it was the perfect place to spend the winter. He had multiple different animals coming to drink. There was at least some sort of protection in the form of drainage lines close to both those waterholes, and he had access to water. So their territories do change quite a bit. If you look at Tingana as well, when I first started here at Wild Earth, where we are right now is an area that Tingana was frequently seen. We often used to see Tingana crossing from Djuma to the west, and used to be moving around here, and he was kind of all over Djuma, really. Now his territory seems to have changed slightly. He seems to have pushed a lot further to the east and to the north. He's going big, deep, kind of long walks into Buffelshoek these days. Not so much down south to Chitwa anymore, because there's now a younger male down there. And so he's kind of, changed his territory quite a bit. And so there is a lot of movement in territories in the males over the years. And it would be really nice to animate a graphic of how these territories have shifted and changed. And I suppose Panthera's study and the fact that we log every single sighting that we see would be an ability to do that. We could kind of make a core area, and you could see how that core area has shifted. Try to see if we can maybe figure something out and see if we can do it, because it would be quite an interesting thing to see an animated map of, even if it's just one leopard like Tingana and his drifting that he's done over the years, and how that's kind of shaped where he is and where he's been. Good. Well, Hukumori still hasn't put his head up. He obviously thinks I'm boring and wants to sleep. And so in the meantime, we're going to wait for him, hopefully, just to get his head up once. But let's go back across to Jamie and see if she's still being patient at the hyena den.
Every time we say that, the hyenas get up and move away. There's a certain inevitability to that. It's known as Cole's Law, for those of you who'd forgotten about that. We had Pretty's cubs come up again to say hello to us and to the vehicle and have a jolly good sniff. I have to tell you, if you think that we think we suffer with carrot seed, grass seeds that hook onto our socks and shoes and various other items of clothing, that you should see what their fur looks like. They are absolutely covered in the things. I can't imagine that it's terribly comfortable. Now, of course, we've gone back to sleep, so hold on. Let me move around to where June was. June's cubs were out as well, having a little play around, a little display of dominance as well. And let me just go around that way. No one behind me, Craig? No, we're all good. Corky's gone off again, taken Plonk with her. I'm sure she'll be back. I'm just sitting it out. I'm waiting for Ribbon to come back. She'll come. She's got to feed those little ones quite regularly. They're so tiny that they need small, frequent meals at this point. Fly. Nines wants to know if there's any other species that will adopt hyena cubs. Yeah, humans. Unfortunately, it's one of those realities of human beings that we can't let nature do her thing without interfering. No, don't come yet. I'm just turning round. No, stay where you are. You can come say hello in a second. I'm just turning round. Humans have a certain fascination with hyenas, particularly in certain areas of Africa. Ends up with a hyena on chains as part of the gangster look, which is terribly tragic. Otherwise, no. Typically not. One gets these aberrations in nature. Something like, for example, the stories of lions or lionesses adopting leopard cubs or baby baboons or baby antelope at times. And they seem to get a bit confused about their instincts, their maternal instincts. Craig, can you see there? Is that okay? Their maternal instincts get confused with their predatory instincts, and they don't quite know what they're doing for a little while. It invariably ends tragically in a wild situation. In human-created situations, for example, in animal orphanages or something like that, you get stories of servals adopting wildcat kittens and wildcats adopting serval kittens and all sorts of strange things. But typically no, in nature. And I think that the likelihood of a lioness, for example, adopting a leopard cub is much higher than the chance of a lioness adopting a hyena cub, just because the enmity between those two species is much stronger. Hyenas are an apex predator, so are lions. It means that in terms of threats, a hyena is a bigger threat to a lion than a leopard is. So I would say that it is hugely unlikely. But because I'm always wary of saying never, you know what they say in nature, never say never. The animals often set out to prove us wrong. But let's say I'm pretty confident that we're not going to see a hyena cub adopted on our live safaris by a different species. It would come as a surprise to all of us, let's put it that way. All right. Well, since every time I try and show you the hyenas, they all settle down once again, you obviously have a soporific effect on them, or perhaps it's my voice. We'll go from lots of creatures with lots of legs to one creature with lots of legs. I've used that link before.
Thanks, Jamie. Indeed, we have found something arachnid, and it is a small golden orb spider that is relatively small for this time of year, bearing in mind that these spiders actually come out in the beginning of the rainy season, eggs laid somewhere on the tree. They come out, the females grow enormously in a very short space of time, obviously due to the food that they've been accustomed to, and they grow, and normally a female of about this size, should be about that size at the moment. Oh, sorry, ma'am. But she is very, very small. You see the coloration, which determines it or makes it quite easy to identify orb spiders, but no real characteristic big yellow web over here. You can almost see the makings of the stabilimentum underneath her, but nothing too too sort of out there. I wonder why she's a bit delayed. Maybe she just hatched after the rains we had a couple of weeks ago. Because, you know, obviously seasonality of these sort of spiders is there's something that's got to cue them. And if there's not enough rainfall, they just don't come out. Same with happens to a lot of frogs and lots of sort of insect species. And often you'll have rain that happens. The spider's not going, hang on, it's March, it's too late for the rain. They just respond to the cue. They don't look at the time of year. So if we can have late rains, things like this can happen. So very, very small, but very beautiful nonetheless. And if you are not a spider lover, don't worry. The spider, the chances of this biting you, well, on the other side of the lens is impossible. But even if it did bite you out here, all it would provide is a slight headache. So nothing too much to be concerned with. RSS, you want to know if it's poisonous or not. Now, just first of all, it's one of those things that many people get mistaken with, poison and venom. Now, poison is something, if you ingest it, it could kill you. The spider and things that have venom, they inject you, they envenomate you like a needle. It's got to go into the blood system. You can drink venom as long as you don't have any sores in your mouth or in your digestive system. You should be fine. I wouldn't advise it, but you can't ingest poison. If you ingest poison, kill you. But you could touch poison. You could probably inject poison into the lymph. I don't know. Let's not talk about injecting poisons. Let's not do that at all. But venom is something that needs to go into your blood circulatory system, and that's what affects you. So a venomous spider is edible, most likely, as long as it doesn't bite you. But if it bites you, then it envenomates you, and then all of the venom goes in, and all the different types of venom that you get will cause you to react in all sorts of ways, maybe just painful, or it might lead to stopping of the heart, or messing with the respiratory system, or even just serious rotting of the flesh around the bite wound. With this spider, that all it'll do is give you a little bit of a headache. So I hope that spells it all out there for you nicely. It is one of those things that many people get confused, poisonous and venomous, but venom is injected, poison ingested. Joy, the difference between the golden and the garden is quite simple, actually. If you have a look at the body, I can't get my hand in there, but if you have a look at the body, you see the abdomen of the body is quite round, in fact. It's quite smooth and quite round, whereas the garden, it's this jagged sort of shape all the way around. It's almost like what would you describe it as, Jean-Andre? It's a jagged shape, a zigzaggy shape all the way around the body. And it's very easy to identify. By all means, they look very similar in the same sort of web, behave very similarly, but they are slightly different in size and shape. But colors are all very similar, but just that body, the abdomen on the garden orb. The garden orb has got that jagged sort of tool implement sort of angle to it. Garden, and the golden is smooth and rounded abdomen. Okay, sometimes you can look in these webs, you can find other spiders living in there. The males are very, very small. The males are very small. Sometimes you even get dewdrop spiders, which live inside. They look like little balls of water, and they actually are what we call a kleptoparasite, and they actually steal the food from this big mama here, and she doesn't really know. They are thieves. Paula, you want to know what the most dangerous spider out here in the wilderness is? Well, I mean, violent spider is probably quite a common one that you'll find, and it's known to bite a lot of people. But in South Africa in general, I'd say probably the most sort of dangerous spider, invariably, because it is known to move around and it also bites a lot of people, is the sack spider. And the sack spider is easily identified. It's sort of got a creamy sort of color, and it's got these giant sort of black fangs on the front of its face. And they live in thatch roofs, they live in buildings, they live along windowsills. They are very common in human habitation, and they are known to move around as well. And when they bite, it can lead to a very, very nasty sort of wound on your skin. But no spider bites in South Africa are actually fatal unless you have some past condition or maybe heart condition or something. Invariably, they're all very well treated. The best thing in the world to do with a spider bite is just clean it, keep it aerated, and seek a doctor, seek medical attention. Don't squeeze it, don't suck it out, don't put toothpaste or anything on. Just clean it, because that is what leads to the infection, is the dirtiness around the wound, and putting all sorts of weird remedies on there. not ideal. Okay, well, we're going to keep walking through here. We are on the western side right now, trying to see if there's any Shadulu Hukurulu tracks coming in. In the meantime, let's go back down to someone who is ready with cuteness still at the den site.
Our hyenas are sort of up and about. It's a lazy start for them. And I'm quite, in a way, I suppose, to look at the sort of silver linings of things, I'm quite glad it's nice and cool this morning because it keeps them active for much longer. It also means that we're getting drizzled on, which none of us could have predicted this morning when we got up. I mean, it was clear we could see the stars when we were getting the vehicles ready. So apparently it's decided now that it's going to rain on us, which is fine. A little bit of late rain is great, but if it could just hold off until the end of the sunrise safari, that would also be ideal. I mean, I don't want to ask for too much, but that would be great. June's tucked herself back up into a little hollow at the entrance to the den. Cubs are down there somewhere. I think they're feeding. Oh, no, they're not. Sorry. Talking nonsense. One's out. Ravinda, there's quite a few differences between the Mara and the Djuma hyenas. The most obvious one being the sheer numbers. The hyenas here, even the large clan of Elephant Plains, which is, I don't know, I haven't had a count recently from any of the guides, but I mean, I've heard it being estimated around 40 hyenas, which is a small Mara clan. The numbers are just that much higher in the Mara. The hyenas in the Mara are smaller, fluffier, definitely, because the average temperatures are much, much cooler. And other than that, there's a lot of course, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, it's the same species, but there's certainly some interesting aspects of their behavior that's different. The way in which the Mara hyenas hunt, I'm pretty certain. Look, watch this. Look how June, see how the adult's being submissive to the cub? That's a really important little lesson for new viewers. The way in which status is not size dependent. So Pretty's cub, their mother is that much more dominant in the clan hierarchy, meaning that Pretty's cub can do whatever it wants, including drag June's cub around by the back of the neck if it wants to. There's nothing that June can do about it. And while she might step in while Pretty isn't here, chances are that she won't, because she'll be nervous of Pretty coming in and actually disciplining her herself. It's one way in which a hyena can find itself really seriously in trouble if it tries to intervene where the cub's scrabbles, or scraps, not scrabbles, scraps are concerned. They also, of course, have entirely different denning behavior. There's no big termite mounds in the Mara. They have to approach things very differently. They utilize large excavated burrows in the ground, something that's been used by an aardvark or a warthog, and there's no big structure that they can use, so they use holes in the ground. It's totally different, and often a little bit more tricky when the grass is long to even see the adults when they go down and lie in the same way that June's doing at the entrance to the den. I suspect that the hyenas here hunt less than the hyenas do in the Mara. That doesn't mean that they don't hunt at all. They certainly are not being supported by the hunting of leopards or lions in this area. They never steal from the lions, or very seldom steal from the lions here. Certainly the Djuma clan doesn't have the numbers, which means that they must be hunting regularly, every night, to actually be able to support themselves, because there's not enough leopards and not enough leopard kills for them to be living purely off scavenging. We know this about spotted hyenas, but it's always useful to remind people that this is the case. But I suspect that they scavenge less than they do, and I think that the meals that they have are probably smaller. We don't often see the Djuma clan hunting together as a unit. That doesn't mean that they don't, though. The problem with this area is that it's impossible to follow them. It's totally impossible. It's not doable. It's like following wild dogs, but even more difficult. Oh, you fall down. Roly-poly down the hill. It's quite gentle play at this point. Justin, yes, they do. Hyenas do scent mark. I wonder if we should move. Listen here. If you're going to wrestle, can you do it out from behind the bush? Yes, no, please? Or is that the perfect place to hide away? It's probably the perfect place to hide away. Hyenas do something known as anal pasting, which is as disgusting as it sounds. Well, I mean, it's not disgusting, actually. It's pretty natural. It smells pretty gross, though. It is essentially they have very highly developed anal glands that they then invert, and they secrete a paste onto a blade of grass. In the case of spotted hyenas, it's a sort of a uniform color. In brown hyenas, it actually consists of two different colors. A lightish color, which contains all the information, the sex of the individual, its breeding status, probably contains a bit of information about its position in the hierarchy as well. And then it also, for brown hyenas, has a little time stamp of how old the marking is. This rain's getting worse. It's thoroughly unpleasant. I'm just going to sit still and hope that we can get away with it for now. But at some point we might have to evacuate and go and put our rain covers on. I don't want to do that here because we're just going to scare everyone off. Although these hyenas are pretty bomb-proof. So they do scent mark, and they regularly scent mark pathways and areas around the den. What's quite fun as well is to watch the youngsters try and do it, even before they're developed enough in order to be actually able to do so. Okay, well, we figure out how we're going to manage this rainy situation. I imagine that something similar is going through Steve's mind out on foot.
You can just go. Sorry, I might be losing my mic again. I have to apologize. I don't know what it is with me and my mic, Jandre. Something weird. Sorry about my audio, everybody. There is something wrong with my... I need to get something sorted because I am always having issues with this thing attached to my stomach over here, which drives me a little bit chaotically mad in the head. Can I move, Jandre? I'm going to move. Can you still hear me? Okay. Here we've got a track. You can see it starts to drizzle slightly. Here. Can you see that, Jandre?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I've got to move, and I can't move, so I'm going to stand here. I can't do a track standing up, I'm afraid, Jandre. Okay. The audio is fine when I stand up, but I need to do a track on the ground, so I don't know what to do, everybody. So, point with my toes. Well, James Henry has specifically told me to bend down to show tracks. I can't use my stick, but I'm going to use my stick today. James, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm having issues with this when I bend down. Okay, so here we have the track over here. Here's the pads, and the toes are all over here. All moving through. It's losing a little bit of color because of the light, but the relevance is the size of there. You can see it's just smaller than 10 centimeters, about 8 or so centimeters, and it's moving through the sediment here, created by an elephant that has done a digging here for some dust, and it's shuffling. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. And the reason why I wanted to point it out, because Hukumuri's got one of these in his belly this morning, since yesterday. So it's a very nice porcupine track. Unfortunately, the light is not great. When we started setting up the segment, the clouds moved in and started drizzling, and suddenly the color that was so nice is gone. But very often along this road here, we've had a family of porcupines up and down, and, well, we don't know if this is one on its own, or if it's part of a family, or if it's in fact a member who's related to the one who's in Hukumuri's belly. But all we know is they don't waste. Hukumuri enjoyed himself a meal there, and no doubt the porcupine did not. But anyway, that was my story for here. I do apologize about the mic issues. I'm going to move quickly to get my knife back again. It's always important, everybody, to measure the track to measure the track with regards to size, have a look at the toes, and they're such interesting tracks because on the porcupine, they put their whole foot down, just like we do. You know, Tristan was tracking this morning, and he's tracking a leopard. Now, a leopard only puts down their toes, so they're called digitigrade. That's why you see 4 toes in a leopard, but their dew claw is up over here. Whereas with us, we put down our whole foot. So do monkeys, baboons, honey badgers, and porcupines. So they put down this whole thing, so you get the whole palm of the foot as well as all the toes and, well, the fingers. And then some animals only walk on the 2 nails there, giraffe and kudu, impala. That is their track. The rest of this is elongated into their leg, which gives them much more leg length, bigger stride, bigger distances for running and moving away from predators. So that is my little story there. And while we move back on, seeing if we can't find some tracks of this beautiful female leopard, let's go back over to the father of her children.
Right, well, we're still sitting with Hukamuri at the moment, but it's really starting to rain quite heavily, so we're going to have to get covers onto this car before equipment gets damaged. It's all of a sudden just started to come down, and the problem is the covers are under my seat, which is not ideal, so we're going to have to move out of the sighting at some point. But you can hear it starting to kind of rain properly at the moment, and you can see it's even woken Hukamuri up from his slumber. He's decided he's not going to stay in the rain, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see him maybe moving and finding a bush where he can try and kind of get in underneath it. But it is raining quite hard. If you look at the pan to the right of him, you'll be able to see the kind of amount of water that's falling. And like I say, with cameras and various other equipment, we do need to cover it up as soon as possible. It's kind of come out of nowhere. There was a few little drops, and it was fairly kind of innocuous, the rain. It was almost misty more than anything else. And now it's just all of a sudden gotten quite heavy. But there's Hukamuri. Looks like he might be starting to wake up a little bit now. I just saw him yawning. And so we're going to try and just quickly see if we can get some covers. He looks as though he might take a little bit more of a nap. We're going to just kind of move. Sorry, there's Senzo's head in the frame. He's grabbing covers quickly. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you back to Steve while we sort these out, and we'll see you all shortly.
Well, just this really, it's nothing too much, but electrical equipment does not do very well in the water. But we'll have to see how much it gets, because we might have to head. Chandra does have the covers on. But anyway, it's Medicinal Monday, and the plant I've chosen for today stands before us here, ladies and gentlemen. And it is indeed a purple foxglove, or a wild foxglove, and a very nice plant indeed. And what we are going to do is slowly, as we get back to quarantine and to a suitable area to do the medicinal sort of thing, this is the plant I'm going to harvest. Lots of leaves. The leaves and the shoots are very, very useful with regards to certain medicinal values, and then also the roots. Now, when we talk about harvesting, we always got to bear in mind that we don't harvest the only plant that's available. We've also got to bear in mind what plant parts do we harvest. Leaves are normally quite sustainable. Roots, as we've discussed before, not so really. Oh, here comes the rain properly. But around us here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 decent sized ones, and when we get to quarantine, there's many, many, many of them. Okay, just got to double check on the back of Jandre here that everything's covered. It is raining, everybody. It is covered. We're looking good. And so with this plant, I need a lot of leaves. I'm not going to harvest this one. I'm going to wait till we get to quarantine. And I also need roots. So because I've got lots of this plant, sustainably I can harvest the leaves without causing it any harm, and grab all of the roots, and that is something we're going to do shortly. But while we try and evade this rainfall, everybody do not go anywhere. Maybe just get yourself a quick cup of coffee, come right back. We're just going to go to Tech Loop.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, things have gotten rather damp rather quickly out here. So we had a bit of a torrential downpour and everything is now soaking wet. So I'm going to get rid of all the droplets on my cap. And we now have a roof on which, well, hopefully is going to protect us from the rest of the rain. But you can see by the kind of roads how much rain has just fallen in the last few minutes. So we all got caught a bit unawares. None of us really saw it kind of coming. It was, I mean, when we started the drive this morning, there was literally stars and there was no clouds, and a few little clouds started to build, and kind of now it's torrential rain that started falling. It's eased up nicely now though, so much better. When we were driving back to get the roof, I actually couldn't even see where I was driving at one point. There was kind of rain in my eyes and we are thoroughly wet, so we're going to be quite cold by the time we finish up this morning's proceedings, but hopefully the rain will kind of back away and some sunshine will come out to dry us up, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And like I say, everything is very damp at this stage. Now, when we left, Hukamuri was still there, so we're going to go back to him. Auntie Nancy, I am in a roving tent. It's pretty much what this is. It's the joyous life for the cam up in the back there. The tent has a massive design flaw for the presenter in front because that pretty much does nothing to stop any rain whatsoever. You just get absolutely hammered by it. At least for the camera equipment and cam up and everything like that, it's much better for them. But our tent is at least somewhat useful. I mean, it is better than without it, that's for sure. You know, without it would be probably very wet, except that it's really not raining nearly as hard as what it was earlier, and so it's not really that bad now. Randy Apple, you're saying you're glad that there is rain in Juma. Well, that makes one of us. Because I can promise you now, being rained on and getting your socks soggy and your underpants soggy is never the best thing at 6 o'clock in the morning. But no, I'm joking. It is good. I mean, obviously rain is vitally important to this ecosystem and we do need it. We've had a few dry years, but it could have waited at least. It could have started raining at 8:30 and, you know, given us a bit of a chance to stay dry. There's nothing better than driving around completely soggy from head to toe for an hour. It's certainly makes one feel rather sprightly. It certainly will wake you up though. If you were asleep and you get wet like this and drive around in the cold, you feel rather awake rather quickly. Shame, poor Jamie, I saw her just now. She's also completely drenched. Both of us have had no rain covers with us whatsoever, so it looks like we've both jumped in swimming pools at this stage, which is okay. It's only water. We'll survive. We're not little effervescent tablets, so we certainly will be okay in the long run, I think. I just hope that the rain hasn't actually chased Hukamuri off and he's crossed over now, because he was looking decidedly unhappy when the rain started to fall. He kind of moved himself to a little piece of grass and then he was just looking at us with this glare that only Hukamuri can have as to the fact that it was now raining on him. And I could feel his sympathy because, you know, I was too being rained on, and so I can understand why he was not enjoying it as much as one would think. But I'm just, like I say, going to hope that he's stayed where he is. It's amazing how, you know, we tracked him earlier by following tracks in this area. You can't even see the tracks anymore. They've been completely washed away now. So had he walked, you know, now, or just before this and it rained before we got to the tracks, we would never have found him. When we reversed out, I was saying to Senzo, there's no ways that you can even spot him from 10 meters away, and you'll see now when we get there, because we're not too far from where we are, and so I'll be able to show you how difficult it is to find him, I think. Anyway, it sounds like Jamie's back out and about. She too will, like I say, be looking like she's been in a swimming pool, but she's found a slithery serpent in the meantime.
Look! Who's in the car on the rain covers? Hello, please don't bite me in the face. How cool is this? Where's he going? I'm going to let him go in a second. He was actually in the car with us. An absolutely stunning little snake. No, don't go down there. Sorry, I'm going to have to catch you. I'm going to have to catch you. No. That's right. Up we go. Come on. Come. Hey, where are you going? You can't go. Stop trying to go down my back. Beautiful little spotted bush snake that was obviously on the rain cover with us. Are you enjoying my soaked jacket? Because I'm not. No, where are you going? That's it, that's it, that's it. Yeah, onto the dash. There we go. Oh, cool. Trying to do this really carefully so I'm not grabbing him. I'm just jumping out of comms. I'm going to just release him quickly. They're totally harmless. You've been talking about poisonous things and venomous things. They are totally harmless. Very inoffensive little snakes. Hi. No, 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 not under there. Come, back on my arm. Here, you and I are friends now. You and I are friends now. Come. That's it. On you go. On you go. Come, pretty snake. That's it. Don't bite me. There we go, buddy. Here we go. How cool. Oopsie. Panic. Okay, he's gone. He's gone off into the grass to the side. You can't see him, but he moved so fast. Sorry, buddy. You weren't meant to fall off me. And we couldn't have you living in the car now, could we? Hi, everyone. It's, remember when I said if only the rain would just hold off until the end of the safari? It didn't. You've seen Tristan, now you've seen myself. Craig is soaked in the back there. I'm sort of rapidly turning blue. But that was a really nice snake. What a beautiful, beautiful snake. It was obviously living in our rain cover. Must have got a bit of a surprise. Sherry says that she just loves the bush snakes colouring. They're beautiful little snakes. That gorgeous, gorgeous green, and of course the black spots as well, really, really lend it something special. A lot of people, when they see them, panic because they look, a lot of people mistake them for worm slungs. Something completely different. A worm slung, of course, my lips are so cold I can't speak. The worm slung, of course, is the most potent venom of any of the snakes out here. It doesn't make it the most dangerous, but it does have the most potent hemotoxic venom. But they look very different. They've got, the males are bright green, the females are a little bit dull, and they have much larger eyes and shorter faces. The bush snake looks like a typical snake. You know what I mean by that? Like if you drew a picture of a snake as a child, or if you look at a picture of a snake in a picture book, that would be what you see. Now they're beautiful creatures. Little constrictors, not venomous in any way to humans at all. You might feel a bit headachy or something if they bite you, but not seriously. They're also very inoffensive snakes. They don't bite easily. Something like a tiger snake, if you're handling them, can be quite aggressive. Nancy says that she's just glad it wasn't a scorpion. Me too, Nancy, me too. I'm also glad that it was not a centipede, because in that case I would have been squealing and running out of the car like a big baby. Because as you know, I'm afraid of centipedes. Not afraid of snakes, not afraid of scorpions, but there's something about centipedes that reaches deep down to the primal girly girl inside me. And I just go, ah! And I can't deal with them. Terrible with centipedes. I admit to it. I'm not too proud to admit to that. You know, there's blue skies on the horizon. I'm really glad, because I would love to see the sun right now. Puma wants to know if that was a full-grown spotted bush snake. Why is that so hard to say? Or juvenile. That was an adult. They don't get much larger than that. So they're quite thin, quite long snakes. That one, as you saw, was probably from the end of my fingers to my shoulder, plus a little bit extended down my neck, which is a weird way of measuring snakes, but it provided us with that opportunity. Such a stunning encounter. Pity it fell off me at the end, but it was fine. Slithered away into the bush, no problem. Driving really slowly because it's still raining a little bit and I'm soaked through. So the wind chill factor's increased by about or decreased, I don't know what the word would be, by about 10 degrees. Spotted bush snake, spotted bush snake, spotted bush snake, spotted bush snake. See if you can do that one. It's actually quite a good tongue twister. Spotted bush snake, spotted bush snake, spotted... Bop, 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 bop. Go on, Faith, your turn. No. Instead, what Faith is going to... Faith's actually quite good. But what Faith really would like me to do instead of doing tongue twisters is to send you across to Tristan, who, of course, is trying to search for hukamuri after the rain.
I am indeed, because he's not where we left him, unfortunately. So he has moved, which I suppose is what I would expect with that kind of rain. So I'm trying to just see if I can find where he was. He was lying right here in front when we left, but I'm pretty sure he's gone and found himself a nice little thicket to lie in with this rain. I don't think he would have wanted to be out, so he's probably gotten himself in underneath somewhere and is just tucked up, or he's on the move. So, I mean, it's tricky. There's no tracks that I'm going to be able to find now because of the way the rain has fallen. But what we can do is just do a few little loops around and just check under all the little bushes and just see if maybe, just maybe, he's not sitting in a thicket somewhere trying to kind of dry himself off a little bit. The problem is I've got a field of view that is just this. I can't really, you know what, actually, it's kind of stopped raining now, so we're going to just put that there for now. You stay there, and that I can then hold this and be able to actually see out the side here and see whether or not I can find him in this long grass. It should be fairly easy. You know, the thing is I don't think he will want to be in the grass where it's very, very long. I would suspect that he would rather go and lie where there's a kind of bush that doesn't have too much grass under it, and there's a tambuti thicket that's not too far away from where we are, and so that would be my guess as to where he maybe has tried to seek some sort of refuge and shelter. But it's a, you know, needle in a haystack point of view now, because of the way that he camouflages. Gemma, I mean, not all cats. Tigers love water, so now when I was in India, that's one of the main ways you find them is just checking water because they go and wallow in it. So not all cats. I mean, I've seen a pride of lions that loved water. So the Charleston pride down in the south of the Sabi Sands, they used to lie in the Sand River just to cool off. So they would go and they'd get into the Sand River and they would lie there and they'd be nice and cool, and it would be the perfect kind of place for them to spend some time. So, you know, they loved it in that area. I've seen leopards cross water, I've seen lions cross water, but they're not a huge fan. I mean, they don't really like it, and particularly not rain. Rain is really not that ideal. So this is the tambuti thicket that I was talking about. You can see there's not nearly as much grass, and so he's not going to get as wet a coat lying underneath here than he is, although it's gotten a bit muddy. It really did rain quite a bit. Oof, I don't know where he's gone. I was just expecting to find him under one of these trees, but it doesn't look like it. Let's just quickly check all the way through to Triple M, see maybe I get lucky and I can see a muddy footprint somewhere, but I don't think he would have gone far. I mean, he was full, he didn't really want to move. It was the rain that kind of was irritating him. Doesn't seem to be any tracks on this big pathway that leads away from here. The problem is, like I said, I can't really see much, so I can see as much as what I can see in front of me. So if he's off to my side, I'm gonna have to do kind of figure of eights through here until I've covered everywhere. Senzo, where's he gone? What do you think, Sens? Sens thinks the other side. So, Robert, his territory has definitely changed. Whether it's decreased, I'm not sure. I don't really know how far he's pushing in Londolozi, like where exactly he's moving in that area, to be honest. So that makes life a little bit tricky in answering that. But he's definitely not patrolling this northern section nearly as much as he used to. He was a regular appearance or regular kind of tracks and audio of him around Simambili, towards Arathusa, Elephant Plains, whereas now, just speaking to the guys, I mean, I obviously haven't spent much time that side, but speaking to the guys, they say they're not seeing very much of him at all. His tracks, nothing, and so Hukamuri is being seen in those same areas as where Anderson used to be seen, and so that maybe indicates that he's not patrolling that area nearly as much as what he used to, and so just trying to look up and down Triple M to see if he hasn't crossed over here. And so I don't think he's grown his territory. I think in anything, maybe it's decreased a little bit as he's getting older. Younger males are starting to take little sections of it. But it's difficult to say. I mean, we don't see him enough, and I certainly haven't seen him for a long time, so I wouldn't be able to answer that with any sort of proper conviction. All right, so I can't see where he's gone. He doesn't look like he's come out onto Triple M. There's no real tracks that I can see here. So I'm going to go and just keep scratching around. I think I'll eventually find him. I just got to try work at it. So in the meantime, let's go back across to the snake wrangler, Jamie, and see what her next magic trick is up her sleeve.
Tristan searches for Hukamuri is to go and see whether or not Ribbons made her way to the den. That rain was hard enough, though, that I suspect all of the hyenas have gone to ground. I certainly would have. If I were them, I would have gone and hidden up below in the nice, warm, cozy tunnels, which at the moment sounds so appealing, although I know how smelly they would be. But I'm almost, at this point, ready to curl up in there with them. Just crawl in and say hello and curl up and just deal with the nibbles as they come. Because it's chilly now. So on my way, I picked up, it actually gives me an excuse to stop. I picked up a porcupine. Where's the key? There's the key. Porcupine. I'm trying to keep my movements as small as possible to stop my wet clothes clinging to me. It's a softened porcupine quill from the water and from just being off the porcupine for a while, so something's probably stepped in it. But you're talking a lot about the effect of porcupine quills and what they will actually do to the animals that they stab. Now this end here is gone all pruny. Look at that. That's how soaked we were. This end here is the bit that embeds in the porcupine skin like a hair follicle, because essentially that's what a quill is. It's a modified hair. And then if we turn it around, let me turn it over like this. Here we go. So that end there, that is the business end of a porcupine quill. And of course, porcupines don't shoot their quills out, contrary to many cartoons, which suggested that they do back in the 90s. What they actually do is they bristle their quills, and they just like having goosebumps, except only a lot spikier for the porcupine. And so they stand up away from the body, and then the porcupine furiously reverses back towards its aggressor. Now, that, of course, doesn't always work, as case in point being the poor porcupine, the poor porcupine that Hukamuri caught yesterday. Now, on the edge of the sharp end of the quills are little barbs, backward-facing barbs, that embed themselves in the skin of the animal that's attacked them. And I think basically what that does is it just serves as an extra distraction. The animal's been stabbed, it's trying to get the quill out, and it's stuck, and might just be able to get away. Yes, exactly, Olnick. You want to know if they're barbed? Yes, they are. Not all of them, but there are little micro barbs on the quills. Sometimes on the larger, really thick ones, you can actually see them. But in this one, I can't. They are microscopic barbs, though, which embed themselves properly in the animal's skin and, of course, make it very difficult to pull out. That's why Tristan was talking about secondary infection. That's often why it takes hold. If the animal isn't able to pull it out properly, what they sometimes do is they just break it off because they're worrying at it. And they break it off, and then the bit still stays in their flesh. And of course, what I always think about when I think about porcupines, because as part of my childhood was the incredible journey when Chance gets his face smashed by a porcupine. Orchid wants to know, is a porcupine meal really worth the effort for a leopard? And the answer quite clearly must be yes, because they persist with killing it. You know, they're not making the same equation that we are. We as human beings sort of weigh up the pros and cons and come to a conclusion. But for an animal like a leopard that lives meal to meal, anything is fair game. Whether it's a honey badger, which often isn't worth the effort, or a porcupine, I suspect that you'll find that certain leopards will be more practiced at killing porcupines than others. Some might have a bad experience, for example, as a youngster, and perhaps not know how to go about hunting a porcupine, get it wrong, get themselves quite badly stabbed, and decide after that that actually porcupines really aren't worth the effort because they've got a little bit of, they've been a little bit traumatized by the whole thing, and they'll avoid them. So there is a small set of evidence that suggests that leopards do specialize in certain types of prey, and some do prefer hunting certain types of prey. It doesn't mean they won't hunt other things. Is it worth it? I guess so, it must be, because Okumuri did it, and he's not the first. Many a leopard has found themselves with a quill or two in their cheeks and around their jaw. And when you think about it, it's the risk of being stabbed by a porcupine is one thing. Taking on a 100-kilogram warthog is another. That could actually mean life or death for a leopard. Jennifer, the truth is that no animal really likes heavy rain. Jennifer wants to know what animal loves the rain. Hyenas revel in the effects of the rain, I think, because it actually helps them when it comes to hunting. And they're the only predator, unless it's a really hungry cat, but they're the only predator that I've seen that actually moves in rain like this. Sometimes dogs do as well, wild dogs do as well. But they're, again, also a type of animal that takes, or predator that takes advantage of other animals' confusion. Where something like a cat, leopards, cheetahs, lions, you'd think they would go hunting in this, but actually what they usually do is go and hide under a bush. They don't actually mind walking in drizzle, but they don't particularly like what we just had. What we had was, Craig and I drove out of the hyena den, and the sky just dumped all the water on us. There was no time for us to even, actually, I have a serious bone to pick with somebody. Somebody in our crew, somebody who is commendably tidy in their day-to-day life, and indeed discipline, and indeed actually mental mindset. Very neat, very organized person who insists on putting the rain covers in the tiniest gap under the driver's seat. So to get them in and out is a process that requires fierce concentration and serious tugging or shoving to try and get it back in there, and often results in trapped hands and swear words. And there's this insistence on keeping the rain covers there. We've got a perfectly servable empty space next to us. Sure, during the dry season, absolutely. But I did not appreciate being soaked to the skin while desperately trying to tug the rain covers out this morning. Jeepers, I got cross. And then, of course, there's also the fact that the rain covers come in a bag where, for some reason, the opening of the bag means that you can only get the rain covers out by tugging. Ah, come on. You can guess who it is. You can guess who would be so insistent about keeping rain covers neatly folded away and under the seat. Come on, I told you. Someone with incredible mental discipline, physical discipline, very widely read, and very neat, tidy, and organized in obviously that's a giveaway. Surely I might have... I mean, this is said with great affection, of course. I can tell you it certainly wasn't Brent. Let's tell you that right now. The man can't even put away his used shorts, let alone a rain cover. Who could it possibly be? The polar opposite of? Apparently lots of you getting it right. Tristan's also very neat, by the way. Tristan is a very neat, tidy person, but it's not Tristan. Listen here, hyenas, if you're not here, I'm not moving. I'm going to sit and stare at an empty den. I'm tired of driving. The one great comfort in this situation, of course, is that in a very truly human way, I'm thrilled to say I'm not suffering alone. Misery loves company, and I imagine that Tristan is equally cold.
Indeed, you're not suffering alone, Jamie. We are two in this, and I'm sure Steve also got properly wet as well, given he was on foot. So we're all in it together, which is, well, I suppose makes it that much better. Still can't find Hukamuri, though. I have no idea where this cat has gone. I've checked all the little likely kind of thickets from where he was sitting. If I was a leopard, where would I go? And I've checked pretty much all of them now. And still as yet no sign. Oh, there goes a button quail. Hello, button quail. When you drive off-road at this time of the year, often flush these little button quails out as you're going along, because of course there's absolutely no way to see a button quail in this kind of grass. You just unfortunately have to just take it slow and hope that they move out the way. But you know, I would have expected him to be in one of these little thickets. It's like the perfect place if it's raining for a cat just to get in here and to hide out of the rain and wait until it gets a little bit drier. And it is starting to dry. There's a bit of blue sky that's come out already, and so I think we'll be okay from a kind of getting more wet point of view. But I don't see Hukamuri. Where have you gone, cat? I think he's found himself a little underground tunnel somewhere that he's gone and hidden in. It's simply just the way that they have adapted to survive. Their coat pattern and their shy, kind of timid nature means that they would rather try and kind of hide out on their own and use ambush to be able to catch things and stay hidden than to be in big groupings where they can potentially be spotted by various different prey sources. Also, their body size means that they can bring down things that are sufficient for them, but to feed big groupings would be probably a little bit more tricky. So it's just the way that they've evolved, really, is to fit in within the niche that is theirs. There's very few cats that are actually like lions. In fact, lions are pretty much the only pride animal out of all of the cats. The rest of them are typically considered more to be loners, if you want to call it that. They prefer not to really be in the company of others. If you think cheetah, you'll have coalitions, but female cheetah like to be on their own with their cubs. Tigers on their own with their cubs. So you don't get that same movement. Franklin, tell me where the leopard is. There's a Franklin moving here, so I want the Franklin to go crazy, and then I know Hukamuri is somewhere in amongst that. But the thing is, I also could be driving right next to him at this stage. It's that thick in places here that unless he moves or he's got his head up, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to spot him. So that's why I'm taking it so slow and kind of like trying to look in underneath things, because if he is going to be anywhere, he's going to be underneath something. He's not going to be lying out in the open until such time as the sun comes up. So, sorry, Faith, there's water in my ear, and so you sound like you are submerged in a submarine. So just give me 2 seconds to try and get rid of the water in my ear. This is what happens when it rains, is that you get kind of swimmer's ear. There we go, that's better. Now I can hear you better, Faith. So can you repeat that question for me? Sorry. Kayla, could I name all the leopards that live here? I could, if you would like me to, and I will. Given that we've got no leopard to show you right now, I can start naming them off. So we'll start with Hukamuri, since we're looking for him. So Hukamuri is 1. Then we have Shidulu, and she has 2 cubs currently. Then moving from Shidulu, we probably should, I suppose, go to the royal family lineage. So that would be Tandi, Tlalamba, Kuchava. Those are all females that we get in this area. Then there's the skittish female on Buffelshoek, so I'll do females mostly now. Skittish female on Buffelshoek, then potentially, I mean, it could happen that we would see Tiani. So she's a leopardess to the west of where Shidulu is, and hasn't ever come on, she has come onto Djuma once, but we have not yet seen her on a live drive on Djuma itself. And we have seen her on Arathusa on a live drive, but not Djuma itself. So that's kind of the females that we... Oh, it's Sabui. I've almost forgot Sabui. Sorry, Sabui. I almost forgot you. I didn't mean to. Sabui would be another one. Then in the males, you would have, like I said, Hukamuri, Tingana, Hosana. I know Hosana's not here at the moment, but let's just throw him in there because we're ever hopeful that he will come back. And then you've got Quarantine. You've got... Gajima, you've got, I'm just trying to think who else. That's pretty much it at this stage from the boys. There's a few kind of, well, there's that skittish male that's hanging around in the south. There's a few sort of shy males that are also around and about. I'm trying to see if I can pick up any smell, because funny enough, when I followed his tracks, you could actually smell the rotten meat smell on him, which I know sounds really odd, but it's true. And then when we found him and we were parked next to him, you could actually smell that smell. So I'm just checking to see if I can pick up any of that scent. The rain would have deadened most of it, but you never know. Maybe we can smell him somewhere here as well. So there's a skittish male in the south. Who else would be a male that we see here that I'm forgetting? It's pretty much it at this stage from a male kind of leopard point of view. So that's the general sort of grouping of leopards that we could potentially see. There are obviously those that are outliers from that, that could potentially kind of make an appearance down the line. So I mean, Tumba being a young male, he could make an appearance. There's also obviously a lot of other leopards that are young males throughout the Sabi Sands that could end up in this area. But yeah, those are the basic ones that we see. Have I forgotten anyone, Sens? I said Shidulu, I think that's everybody. I think I've forgotten everybody now. Yeah, I think I've got them all now. I might have missed one. If I did miss one, I do apologize profusely that I have not said one of our leopards. Sometimes you can go blank when you're trying to name them all, but I think that's everybody for now at this stage of the game. There's also, I suppose, Inkanyeni and Monzo could also be a leopard that we would be able to see, or leopards, should I say. They hang around more on the far east of Torchwood and in Coral, Cheetah Plains, but if one of them mates or distributes, you never know, maybe we start to see them a little bit as well. So yeah, that's it. I think that's everybody. It's a lot. Well, I think it's a lot anyway. Right, I'm hoping that Hukamuri comes out now that it's stopped raining and it's a little brighter. I'm hoping that he's going to just make an appearance and start walking down the road somewhere or come out to groom himself. And so while I keep having a little look for him, let's send you to Steve, who's gotten himself sorted out, probably dried off a little bit of coffee, and is in the tent.
We've just managed to evade the rain. Evade the rain at all. Everybody absolutely. And my John had to come back after getting a lift. and we changed all of our clothes because everything is soaking. Managed to save all the important equipment, of course. So Herbie's probably sitting down enjoying a nice cup of coffee right now, and I went into the bushes to go and find you the plant I wanted to harvest, and I've gone and wet myself again. So I do have my farmer boots on, which is awesome, but ideally you can see how wet the long grass is. I walked towards quarantine to find you the plant we were discussing before the rain so rudely interrupted us. And what I've done is I've harvested the entire plant. And what's very noticeable about this plant is you can see how it's been eaten all over the place. It's been eaten, been browsed upon, very, very much so. And so this is essentially the whole plant. I've harvested the entire plant, and we are going to start preparing it for a little bit of a medicinal Monday for all of you. But one thing I still need to do is, because the roots are going to be part of the process, I'm going to need to give them a little bit of a rinse. I just need to get some water to do that while I start setting up all of my equipment here. We're not out in the bush, we're right here by the tent, and well, we're doing it on a very interesting table. Do you want to have a look at our table over here? A very interesting table called an elephant head, an elephant skull. And while Jean-Jay just frames it up, I'm just going to step out of shot for a moment because, you know, medicinal Mondays are something that has become quite popular and I quite enjoy it. And so I decided from a friend to take it to the next level. And well, we're going to have to sort of, you know, someone said last week I kind of resembled Gordon Ramsay. So we're now in frame, ready with the apron in case we mess on our clothes. Very important to have everything in place. What I'm going to do, first of all, is show you some of the leaves. The leaves are over here. I've harvested some of them. We're going to do some wonderful things with the leaves. There's a few things that can be done with the leaves. And the roots are still going to have to wash and then cut them off. But while we're waiting to do that, I'm just going to get the water on the boil because it's important to get the water boiling in the early morning before you get all of your bit. Oopsie, I've still got... Sorry, folks. I'm not as prepared this morning as I would like to be. I've got all of my bits and still inside this wonderful pot. So let's just quickly put some hot water in there. Now, let's just put some water in there. We're going to get this on the boil. And while we're waiting for that to boil, Jean-Jay, first of all, I obviously need to light it up. But what does this leaf smell like to you? Triloba is the species name. Have a smell? Can you all smell that, everybody? There's a very fragrant smell. A lot of people say it's unpleasant. I think it's quite a nice smell. You can kind of smell it, Faith. Oh, what's going on here? Am I going the wrong way? Oh, there we go. There we go. Kettle is on the boil. Everything is good. Now, a lot of people say it's a very fragrant smell, a distasteful smell, but I think it smells like peanut butter. Very, very, very nice smell. And you can actually take these leaves fresh, just like this, and you can mix them with a little bit of water and methylated spirits, and you can use it and rub it on the body as an insect repellent because it's not very tasty or liked by many of the insects, so it can be used quite nicely in that regard. And as you've seen from the plant itself here, before I give it a rinse and get all ready to make you some decoctions, you can see it's being eaten. And up in Zimbabwe, it's actually very well known to cook this and eat it like a spinach. So very, very well, very tasty. Should we? I'm going to do it raw. Very sandy. It's not great. There is better spinach out there. There are definitely better plants out in the world that I could use. James, you want to know what I decided to feature in what plants? Well, essentially, James, I look for a medicinal plant that is interesting for me and that also has a number of different uses. There's a lot of plants out here that are... Oh, let me put that lid back on before we lose all of our steam. There are plants out here that have very limited medicinal value, very limited. And so for me to do an entire segment on a plant that's got no value, or maybe one, it's really going to be a long shot. So I'm picking ones that have got 3, 4, maybe even more medicinal values, things that are practical that I can display on show for you. So I hope that helps. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to try and rinse off the last of the soil on here with a little bit of water that I have left. There we go. Put that down there. And every guy the knife, which is down with my belt downstairs. So we're going to just have to break it, because that's what you do. Andre, do you have your knife on you? Okay, so here's the roots. Ideally, it would be, that's why the apron is useful. It's still quite dirty. These are the roots here. You can see it's actually got quite a nice sort of long root over there, which is a good idea to show you that this plant doesn't die off in the winter months. It'll be here all year round, but it's also got these nice adventitious roots for absorbing moisture. But it is a forb. It doesn't grow, well, it grows quite tall. You saw them earlier. It grew up to about the height of Gendre, which is quite a tall for a forb. Viewed beautiful out here. Lots of animals are eating them, as we could see. Sometimes observation will tell you everything you need to know. So now all I need to do is get all of the bark off of these roots, which I will do in a slow process. Putting it into my what will become a decoction. But unfortunately, I didn't prepare myself too well this morning, as I had thought the rain wouldn't have drizzled on our heads as much as it did. But essentially, what you're looking for in roots, everybody, you can see inside it's quite a hard woody stem inside there. So you're not necessarily looking for the wood, you're looking for the bark on the outside. We were talking earlier about medicinal value with regards to what are elephants looking for. They're looking for this bark. That is where a lot of the roots, or a lot of the plant takes its nutrients, takes its medicinal properties inside this cambium layer in here. So essentially we could just break all of these little roots off here. We could probably use them as well, which I'm going to. We're going to make a very nice decoction. And decoction, everybody, is something that you basically boil for 8 to 10 minutes. And then, depending on the application, you either drink it, or you rub it on yourself, or whatever it is that you need to do. In the case today, we're going to do it slightly differently. And Gendre is going to be involved, aren't you, Gendre? He's not looking very excited. Are you not looking excited?
I'm not drinking it.
Okay, well, while we prepare for this decoction, because we've got 8 to 10 minutes for this to boil, we are feeling nice and warm. Some colleagues of ours have brought us a cup of coffee, which we're very happy about. And sorry, Jamie, that I said that, because you're still trying to dry yourself in the early morning.
Well, I'm not actually trying to drive anywhere. We've lifted up the sides of the roof. I've unpeeled my jacket from my arms because it was just soaked on. Just dumped it there. It can dry there, and I'm just trying to sunbathe in what little sun there is. It's sort of trying to peek through the clouds, and I'm just desperately hoping that that blue patch, well, but the clouds blow away from the sun actually, and that the blue patch moves towards us. So I've been sunbathing for a little bit. It's amazing. I've got a couple of dry patches on my shirt. The rest of me's pretty soaked. The rest of Craig's pretty soaked too. But the sun's come out. It was short-lived. And I decided that I'm working with it, and I was with it. It feels very counterintuitive when you're freezing to take your jacket off. So it took me a while to get there, but I've done it. I've taken it very slowly along to the hyena den. Surprise! They were not there. Just by the way, everything that we have in this vehicle is soaked, including all of the cloths used to wipe the camera lens. So if it looks a little bit murky, it's not because Craig is slacking, it's because we actually don't have anything that we can use to... I mean, you could use my shirt, but it's soaked, and that's pretty much us out of options. Craig's camera cloth is soaked. It's dangling from the rain cover. Just to offer you an explanation. The hyenas have all gone to ground. I'm not going to go very far. I'm just meandering, see what we can see. We're at Treehouse Dam now. And there's obviously, after rain like that, nothing's going to be terribly keen on coming down to the water's edge, but we can stop and have a look and just see what's around, because it gives me another excuse to sunbathe, because now the sun's really coming out and it's glorious. Now, Kelly, as we cruise up onto the dam wall of Treehouse Dam and we can do a little look around it, Kelly wants to know how far hippos will go from water in order to graze at night. And the answer to that is very far. They actually can travel, don't worry about the pole, by the way, that's just the roof. Sorry, Tristan's talking in a very echoey sounding voice. I think something got wet in my radio system. Let me just turn him down a bit. He sounds like he's underwater. Might also be Tristan's radio, to be fair. So they can walk for 20 kilometers easily in a night. You remember they've got to do a round journey from wherever they go to back to the water. So we see hippo tracks even in the sort of midwinter, actually especially in midwinter, very, very far away from their sort of home base water systems. So during the dry season, almost all of these water holes, like Treehouse Dam, actually dry up completely. And the hippos are restricted to the larger water holes, like at Chitwa Dam. And they actually have to move quite far afield in order to find some kind of suitable grazing. Because when you've got a large population of hippos, obviously they eat quite a lot of grass. So in winter, when it's dry and there's not much grass to be found at the best of times, having 20 hippos moving out of an area, they have to spread out quite far in order to find themselves. Oh, that's so glorious. Ah, that's so nice. Come on, son. Quickly work your magic. Luckily, it's still quite warm at this time of year. It gets hot quite quickly. So that should really help shortly. I mean, I was able to take my jacket off, but that doesn't help the sort of lower half of me, which is also soaked. Carol wants to know how much longer Djuma will be as green as it is. Carol, it will be another month and a half. Already I'm starting to see the grasses dry out a little bit. They're starting to, all the seeds are pretty much, they're starting to disperse. And after that, that's the grass is done. They won't invest any more energy into growing or staying green. Not all of them are perennial grasses. Some are annuals. But that'll be, I would say, it will start to dry out in about a month and a half. And of course, once things dry out, everything changes. We see a whole host of different animals, including
Well, unfortunately, it seems as though Jamie's got a few gremlins. We did have a nice elephant bull to show you, but he's now run away from us and disappeared. So he's walked right through where we were looking for Hukamuri, which put a kind of short stop to that. Now, hopefully he's going to stay on the road for 2 more seconds because he's on this road here. So we're going to get a brief view of him as he disappears into Simambili. So this is going to Simambili there and deeper into the bush. But a beautiful elephant bull. He's busy trailing a herd. There's tracks for a whole herd here. So he's on the trail of the herd itself, and that's why he's moving so quickly. You can just see he's been having, well, he's very wet, but he's also been having a mud bath somewhere because he was covered in mud when he came past us. And he's walking with a bit of swagger, so I wouldn't be surprised he's actually in must and is looking for these females potentially to be able to mate with them. But you can see there he's gone, disappeared now. So what I'm going to do is, we've had no luck with Hukamuri. I'm pretty sure all he's doing is sitting in a bush somewhere and trying to was trying to hide out from the rain. And now that it's gotten, a little bit of sun is coming out, I think he will come out. So what I'm going to do is just do a big loop. I'm going to go down towards the power lines, and then I'm going to come back up and then do one more loop around that little pan in the hope that he's now moving about. The problem is if he does decide to move and cross over, or move west, should I say, he's going to cross in about, it'll take him 3-4 minutes to walk over boundaries. So it's going to make life a little bit more tricky. But it'll be worth just doing a loop around. Also, hopefully the sun will come out and we'll be able to dry up a little bit. It's at least warmer than what it was, and at least there is a bit of sun, because it would have been very unpleasant had it stayed cold like it was a little bit earlier. But strange weather, really. I mean, we went blue sky, storm, blue sky, and it's odd because of the time of the day. Generally, we don't see rain at this time of the day. You know, normally the rain, if it comes in, it's normally all day. If it's like that, it starts to rain and then it just kind of goes through. We don't generally get storms at this time of the morning. They're normally afternoon rainstorms. But weather's gone funny these days, so who knows. Robert, I don't think it requires any more than what it's already got to survive the winter. You know, this is more rain than we've had in the last kind of 3 years. So I think it'll still be okay to survive and to get through the winter months. The water points themselves are quite low. I mean, I haven't really spent much time at Twin Dams or Treehouse, but when I did go past both of those, they don't look massively full, but they look like they'll sustain water for most of the winter, if not all of it. I do apologize about the camera shaking. Unfortunately, this road is an absolute nightmare because of the trucks that drive it, so it gets a bit corrugated. But snake, where did you see a snake? Well, there's a car behind me, but Senzo said he saw a snake. Where was it, Senz? On the road. If this car would just move, then I would be able to see. Is it still there? Yeah. So Senzo says it's still there. I hope it hasn't been driven over by somebody, that it's still there. How far, Senz? Let's just turn so I can see. Whereabouts, Senz? Where the water is. Okay, let's just try and have a little quick look what snake this is. Senzo says he saw it at the water, which is right here. Can you still see it? No, it's gone. It's obviously got out of the way very quickly when the cars came past. Okay, so it's moved off. All right, well, Senzo saw a snake. I didn't see it myself, to be honest. I was too busy scanning around. But apparently, surprise, surprise, not only has the sun come out in Djuma, but, well, Lauren is out in the Masai Mara, and it seems as though we'll get some action from that side of the world. So let's cross fingers, hold thumbs, that everything is okay in the Mara.
Lauren has come out and the sun has come out and the cheetah have come out. We have actually been out all morning. However, the gremlins are absolutely battling with us. It's been a very frustrating few days and we're so sorry for that. We're still out here, we're still set up and ready to go, but it's just not going our way. I, of course, am Lauren, and on camera I do have Big James, and right over there we have a cheetah. And it's not at the border, it's really not that far away from our camp. So it was a bit of a surprise when we did drive past it. And just before we went live, two beautiful crowned cranes just landed right in front of the cheetah, and it was fantastically beautiful. However, this cheetah does not seem very interested at all, to be honest. Now, when we first saw the cheetah, it did appear that it was looking to potentially hunt. It's actually not that hot yet. It's not even 9:30 here. It was really looking around with that sort of alert manner, as if it was looking for something to eat. But of course, being a spotted cat, it has just collapsed down and decided to take a little nap again. So we're keeping very close eyes on this cheetah, and unfortunately we're not able to get any closer to even sex it at the moment because we can't get any closer. So I'm so happy to be back with you all. It's been a very frustrating few days. I cannot even begin to tell you the epic sightings that we have had, and the gremlins have just put a stop to everything. Now, just before you arrived with us, there was actually two black rhino right in the distance behind the cheetah. So we've just been here for about the past 40 minutes and it's just been absolutely epic. Now, I have to tell you about yesterday. We did go down to the border hoping that the gremlins would disappear. and give up on us for a change. And we did see a herd of zebras chase a cheetah up a tree. It was incredible. The cheetah walked right into the situation. All the wildebeest, zebra, topi, so many different animals, and they all just turned around and chased the cheetah right out of the area, and it ran up a tree. So we got it all recorded, and we do hope that somehow, some way we can share it all with you, because of course we were not live. I think I call it Sod's Law, but I think Jamie came up with another law, Cole's Law, something like that. Well, that is exactly what is happening to us yet, but we're not giving out. We have been up and out since 6 in the morning this morning. We checked in on the North Clan, and we weren't able to see the baby cubs. We saw all the other cubs, but the tiny, teeny baby ones we did not see, so slightly worried about that, but we will check on them later, of course. But now, we don't want to lose sight of this cheetah. We do have a funny feeling he's going to get up at any moment, and it really is quite unusual to see a cheetah in this area. So I can't believe I'm going to say this against my spotted cats, but the cheetahs may fast become my favourite. No one will ever overtake Hosanna, of course, but oh, I'm starting to fall in love with these guys. Now, a few people are asking if we can get closer, and unfortunately not. This is a no off-roading area, which is very frustrating for us, but, well, on a slightly better note, he or she, I think it's a boy, cannot confirm, was actually much further away. And he did start walking right towards our vehicle. So we hope when he or she gets up again, he's going to continue to keep walking towards our vehicle. But for now, he's obviously having a little mid-morning nap, which I would love to have, but unfortunately I'm here watching him. So no, we're not able to get closer, and I'm really sorry for that. It's also very frustrating for me. I would love to get up and get some ID shots. There's no way we can identify who this is or what sex this is from here. Shelley's asking, is it the first time seeing a cheetah? Well, actually, no. In the Mara, I have been incredibly lucky. I have had a lot of cheetah sightings of late. I used to be the hyena whisperer, but I'm wondering if I'm now going to become the cheetah whisperer. So when was my first sighting? It was the other evening when we had Moogie, a male cheetah who was hunting at the border. That was my first cheetah sighting. And then I keep seeing them every day since. So I'm feeling very lucky and very, very happy to be spending lots of time with these cats. And of course, we are in touch with the cheetah research organisation here, a lady called Elena, and we do supply all our information and our data back to her. So that's why it would be great to get a proper ID shot of this cheetah when he does decide to get up and give us a better look. Now, there was a warthog earlier that walked right past the cheetah's nose and then decided to come back again, have a look at the cheetah, and then leave again. It was a very brave warthog, but obviously the cheetah was not interested. So we, of course, are going to stay. We're not going to move a muscle in case we have any breakup whatsoever. And if anything happens, you will be right back with us. But for now, let's go down to Steve and his Medicinal Monday.
Welcome back, and welcome back from the Mara. We're glad we were able to there. And Lauren, you are wanting to be the cheetah whisperer. I suppose we can't do everything, but we can do a little bit of it all. I know you love your hyenas. You'll never change that fact. But anyway, I didn't have a knife, so I managed to make a plan with my root, and I actually managed to scrape it with a cutting stone that I have in my bag of tricks. Oh, we just steamed up the lens. So that is the decoction boiling there, and I used this to cut and scrape off the roots. So that was a very marvelous thing that I did, and it's something that goes back to Stone Age times. So when you don't have a knife, well, make a plan with a stone. So anyway, here is the decoction. It is boiling beautifully. It's been probably about 8-9 minutes now, so I'm going to just turn that down. What I'm going to do is take this and pour it into my lovely container. This is the reveal. Ow! Now I have got a container here that is protected on the sides against warm liquids. So let's pour that in there. See the nice coloration. Use a little bit of a sieve just to take out all the bits. And then Jean-Ray, once this has cooled down, Jean-Ray is going to do something with this. There we go. But while we wait for this to cool down, everybody, just going to leave it over there. I've got some cold water to cool it down. I started just cooking a little bit of those leaves, just to give you an idea of sort of the spinach properties that will come about of these leaves. Now you can imagine you could boil this, you could probably add a little bit of oil, you could add some ground nuts, some other vegetables, and there we go. You have something really, really tasty at the end of the day. It's quite slimy, I must admit, but with most of the African sort of greens that we get, morogo being one, they get this very slimy sort of mucilage sort of feel to them. So we're going to cool that down. Okay, while that cools down, I'm going to turn it off because I think we've cooked enough. You only need a blanch spinach, really. Cara, you want to know how I determine if a plant's got medicinal value? Well, I wish I was able to tell you. Lots of books and lots of information leads me to the areas that have given me information about plants. I can't look at a plant and tell you what its medicinal value is. I can't do that, unfortunately. But we know from many, many, many generations that out in the wilderness, plants have medicinal value, and many, many traditional healers, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I do. Many traditional healers pass on that information to their grandchildren down in history, and I feel like a lot of that information is being lost. A lot of it is out in the wilderness. It's maybe not recorded as well as it could be. It's not being passed on to people as well as it could be. So it's important to maybe just focus on them and go back to traditional times. Watch out, John, you're standing on your cable. And so just to bring it back in. But bearing in mind, a lot of the things we do on the show are not to treat any chronic illness you might have at home. It's all sort of what the bush can provide, and it can add to sort of some medical treatment. But if you do have a prescription with a doctor, rather stick with that gentleman or lady. I'm sure they know more than I do. But anyway, now that this decoction has cooled down a little bit, I'm going to add some cold water. Of course, cold water is just to cool it down further. And what can be done? Oh, that is very warm. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to mix it in this one then, Jandre. Okay, but before we use anything with it, we have to do the color test. And you all remember I like to do this. It's no application with the syringe today. Well, not necessarily, but there is the beautiful coloration of just the roots. So lots of medicinal value in roots of plants. And what this can be used for, actually it can be used in this application, is you can make very nice eardrops out of this if you've got an earache. So just a little couple of drops. Ow, that's very hot. I wouldn't do that at home, everybody. That was quite warm, and maybe you should cool it down to about room temperature. It gave me a bit of a fright again after yesterday. So before we get Jandre to try that one, there we go. There's a nice one. Jandre, are you going to do it? Would you like me to do it?
What are we doing?
Okay, it's going to be a face wash. So essentially, this is also, we've got earache, which I've just burned my ear. I used the wrong application. I was supposed to use this one for my ears because it was cooler. But what you can do with this is if you've got an eye ache of any sort of problem in your eye, you can just take this, you can wash it on the eyes, on the face. Crystal, all the dust is gone. I'm feeling fantastic right now. Jandre, would you like an application?
Please.
There we go. You go. Do you want me to hold it? I don't know how we can do this now.
How are we going to pull focus?
Okay, so Jandre, we have no idea how we're going to do this right now. But anyway, here is a lovely wash for eye ache, and you can use the same thing for any earache you can have. So those are quite common problems in the natural world. I don't think there's too much to go on with regards to prescription. If you've got chronic ear problems or chronic eye problems, I don't think this is going to really affect that too much. But there's a very good chance that this lovely plant will actually be able to help you a little bit. And, well, remember I said with the leaves as well, you can add them with water, methylated spirits. You can make a very nice sort of insect repellent on your skin. So all of that from a plant we find out in the wilderness, grows prolifically, it's all over the place, smells nice, it's edible, all of these wonderful things. And well, on that note, let's throw this. Oh, you want me to taste, don't you? Everybody wants me to taste. Let me have a taste. I'm not sure about this. It tastes like soil. Anyway, on the note of soil and the palate of a very unappetizing drink, let's take you back up to the marvelous Mara where Lauren is enjoying her cheetah.
Steve does make me incredibly gorgeous coffees. I do miss Steve's coffees down in Juma a lot. He used to make me them on a daily basis. So our cheetah has got up, so we're getting a really good view of it now. I do think it is a male, and hopefully some of you might be able to screenshot that sort of spot pattern as we're getting a side-on view, and we can all work out together who it is. Trying to get some shots on my camera as well, but it's just a little bit out of reach. So you can see those powerful breast muscles, if you like. Look at that. The power in this animal is just absolutely phenomenal, and I have never seen a cheetah climb a tree like I did yesterday. Leopards, yes. Cheetah, no. So they obviously have got the ability and the power within their sort of upper body and their shoulders to hoist themselves up trees. It was just the most amazing sight. So we, of course, are going to keep our eye on this situation for a little while. We can always record things if they do go down, and of course we will share them with you. So once again, apologies, Zamara has been missing in action. Both Pat and I have been out every single day, and of course it's just the gremlins that seem to want to give us a little bit of trouble. But hopefully our amazing tech team, who all wear their super colourful capes, their Superman capes, will obviously come to the rescue and fix the situation. I know that Martin is working really hard right now, and he is wearing his turquoise cape today. So hopefully today is the day that we will sort all our issues out. But anyway, thank you once again for joining us, and we will of course be back this afternoon for our very special weekly Safari Lives, and hopefully the Mara will be joining. Until then, see you later.